You know, maybe this is a hot take, but I fully believe that puppet masters were completely misused in the Naruto verse. They had potential to scale to be some of the strongest characters in the entire verse, but they just didn't. I mean, could you imagine Sasori having puppets of Akatsuki members that have died before? That would be busted. But unfortunately, Kishimoto just didn't share that vision with us. There's so many things that I think that puppet masters would have been able to do with chakra threads. So today, I'm finally going to be giving my take on what if Naruto was a puppet master, which by the way is a commissioned video by Konoha, his second commission on the channel to this point. He's already done What If Deku Had Black Blood, so go check that one out if you haven't already. But with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, do all that usual YouTube stuff, help this video do so much better in the algorithm, and enjoy. Alright, we begin our story in the perspective of a 7-year-old Naruto, with Naruto being at home and kind of being extremely sad considering that today was his birthday and nothing good has come out of it. Naruto knows that other kids having birthdays have birthday parties and their parents are giving them gifts and stuff, but Naruto, none of that. Naruto would be sitting there sulking when suddenly at the door you would hear a knock, and none other than Hiruzen would be standing there with a cake in his hand, a small one might I add, and a puppet for him. Naruto would proceed to open the door looking extremely sad and somber as Hiruzen, greeting Naruto, would say, "How are you, Naruto?" Naruto looks at him and is like, "I'm good," wiping tears off his face. Hiruzen would look at him and say, "Well, you don't look fine, you're crying," as he would go on to pretty much like show him his present and his birthday cake, telling him that he wanted to take some time out of his day-to-day to give him a present and to celebrate his birthday for a bit. Naruto seeing this would be filled with so much joy, and mind you, this is just such a wholesome moment because in this, like, dude, Naruto's 7, right? We know who Naruto goes on to become in the original story, and just crafting this moment is just bringing a smile to my face. But regardless, Hiruzen would sit down, place this little cake on Naruto's table, and then he takes out one singular candle, putting it on top, as Naruto seeing this would just get a big bright smile. He almost tears up, but he wipes it off and just looks at Hiruzen saying, "Thanks, old man Hiruzen," you know, or calling him Gramps. I think that's what he would call him. As Hiruzen would just look at Naruto smiling and telling him that he also got him a present. With Naruto being like, "What? This isn't my present?" From Hiruzen's back, he would pull out a large marionette type puppet. It would be like kind of like a clown looking puppet, and for the purposes of this what if, it's going to be named Harlequin, which is going to be Naruto's first ever puppet that is definitely going to be turned into a real like puppet that can attack and stuff like that down the line in the series. But for now, Naruto's given this really cool puppet toy named Harlequin, which, you know, obviously he's going to name him, but yeah, Naruto would be given this puppet, and after this, he and Hiruzen would celebrate for like what seems like an hour to Naruto, as Hiruzen tells Naruto that unfortunately he has to go after, you know, a little bit of a conversation with him, and Naruto thanking him so much for his gift. After Hiruzen would leave, Naruto would just stare at the puppet and for a slight moment think that it's a little creepy looking, but Naruto would start playing with it and he would have so much fun realizing that this is a toy that can be like a friend to him. It's a toy that Naruto could make have life itself, right? In the sense that he gets to control it and almost make it look like it's a real friend. So for the course of the next couple of weeks, Naruto would start to learn how to be a puppeteer all by himself with this little toy that Naruto would essentially self-teach himself with. That said, eventually through playing with this toy, he would eventually end up wanting more puppets, and Kid Naruto, not exactly being the best with money, would not exactly have too much money to, you know, save and pay for a random puppet, so he would begin to actually sacrifice one entire ramen cup a week, eventually saving up enough money to make his way towards the toy store and buy himself his very second puppet, or his very own puppet that he would have gotten himself. After this, Naruto, you know, he keeps playing with his puppets and doing his thing, and every day after the academy or after just normal class, Naruto would go home excited to play with his puppets, having given them their own personalities and their own little plot points and stories and stuff like that. The dude is basically doing what I'm doing but with puppets, right? But that said, Naruto would eventually end up accidentally breaking Harlequin's arm, and when he does this, Naruto just starts freaking out, wondering if there's any way that he can fix it, right? So Naruto starts trying to like see if there's anything he can do, and Naruto would mess it up even worse by trying to fix it with some sort of glue. It ultimately ends up messing up the joint and making it so that the puppet can't even move its arm anymore. Like, it's there, but now it's completely out of commission. So Naruto, making his way to the store where he would have bought his second puppet, would try to actually get the shop owner to fix, or no, not there. He would go to like a carpenter, telling him to try to fix his puppet. But this carpenter is just an absolute op. And he does not like Naruto because he ended up losing his daughter in the Nine Tails incident, who was a little girl. So he absolutely overcharges Naruto, and now he's just kind of left there with his puppet. Just so unbelievably sad, realizing that he has no way of getting the ludicrous amount of money that the man would have, pretty much told him he has to pay. And Naruto goes home extremely sad, just playing with his other puppet and doing his best to, keep a bright smile on. But it really ate at him every day knowing that he could no longer play with Harlequin. So one day Naruto decides that he's done. He's gonna learn how to fix it himself, one way or the other. And so Naruto would actually start figuring out if there's some way, shape, or form that he could maybe fix it himself. And after a couple trial and errors, Naruto would finally figure out a way to use, little carpenter tools and stuff like that to end up fixing up his puppet. And this is going to be a big freaking deal moving forward, considering that now Naruto learned how to craft his very own puppet arm, which surprisingly enough would actually be even more nimble, and the joints that Naruto would have created for this would make for an even better puppet. So Naruto would actually go on to fix or replace all of the other arms and legs that his puppets have currently had, and he would realize that these arms and legs are super durable. They're able to like move the joints in crazy ways thanks to the way that Naruto does it, and his puppets just literally become 10 times cooler, all thanks to Naruto's like improvisation of trying to fix his puppets. Naruto at this point is learning how to create his very own puppets, and this is going to be a big deal for the story moving on, because just like Kankuro and Sasori, Naruto's going to be able to craft his own puppets and not have to, use... I'm not sure if there's a store where you could buy puppets to, like, attack people with. I don't think that's a thing, but if it was, Naruto's not going to be able to do that stuff. So, with that being said, Naruto would continue playing with his puppets, and we would eventually jump cut to a, 9-year-old Naruto, who would be home alone playing with his puppets like usual, creating his own little world where everything was just happy, when suddenly he would hear another knock at the door. Naruto, having gotten used to how Hiruzen would knock on the door, would go to open it, and Hiruzen would walk inside telling him that he's just here to give him the rent money for this month. Naruto, hearing that, would nod and be like, thank you, Hiruzen. And Hiruzen, seeing that Naruto now had a bigger collection of puppets, because now it wasn't just the one he gave him or the other one that he's had for such a long time, but now Naruto had like 11 puppets on the ground that he was clearly playing with before he had gotten there. And Hiruzen, seeing this, realizing that Naruto clearly is into puppets, wanting to have a bit of a moment where, he showed off to Naruto and was like, look at what I can do, Naruto, pretty much ends up using the puppeteer jutsu, which we're just going to be assuming for plot purposes that he knows the basics of. So using this jutsu, he would create 7 chakra threads, as he would cause like 3 puppets to actually stand up and move on their own. Naruto, seeing this, would be like, what? How are you doing that? Knowing that this is not exactly a jutsu that's common knowledge. This is something that's more so, tailored to the Sand Village. And so Naruto, seeing this, would be absolutely mesmerized, needing to learn how to perform this jutsu, because not only would something like this help him play with his toys a lot, Naruto thinks that this would just be so cool, and would instantly realize that if he was able to maneuver his puppets, maybe this can even have some sort of offensive value for him, because in this specific timeline, while Naruto is not exactly going to be exactly the same one that we get in the original, he is going to be a lot weaker when it comes to his taijutsu. Is he physically strong? Yes. But his taijutsu freaking sucks, man. So he's not able to beat any of his classmates in one-on-one combat, and Naruto thinks that something like this could definitely flip the tables on his side. And so Naruto would ask Hiruzen if he can teach him how to do that, but Hiruzen would say that he'll teach him another day, and this would go on to prompt at least a month or two of Naruto constantly going to Hiruzen's office every single day and being like, can you teach me now? Can you teach me now? Can you teach me now? To the point where Hiruzen is just sitting there and he's like, all right, I'll teach you. Naruto would smile as Hiruzen would go on to show him the very basics of how to use the puppet jutsu, telling him that to do this requires advanced chakra control, considering the fact that he has to create chakra strings which then attach onto these said puppets and create, you know, this movement with the puppets without him having to actually do anything. And Naruto, seeing this, would begin to attempt this over and over. As for the next 15 minutes, Naruto would struggle to, you know, perfectly channel his chakra to create the thread, when suddenly one would be made, and Naruto would cause one of the puppet's arms to actually lift up, with Hiruzen shocked that Naruto has this level of chakra control, which obviously in the normal Naruto story wouldn't make sense, considering that he had borderline zero chakra control, and that was all thanks to Kurama's interference. In this timeline, we're going to be saying that Kurama can't interfere with Naruto's chakra, so he's going to be having much better chakra control, and we're also going to honestly have to make him a bit of a genius, just due to the fact that without those two things being changed, this story is just going to be making zero sense. So yeah, with that said, that's how Naruto's able to do this. Once Hiruzen would see this from Naruto, he would smile as he would know that Naruto's for sure gonna master this technique. He just needs a bit more time. So he would go on to tell Naruto that with that, he could probably learn the rest on his own. And Naruto, you know, would grab two of his puppets, which he would have brought for Hiruzen to demonstrate with, as he would go back home, and for the following next couple of months, Naruto would work on this ability until he would finally get it down pat, being able to use his puppeteer jutsu to create multiple threads of chakra because of the fact that he has massive, and I mean massive chakra reserves at just the small age of 9 years old. And so Naruto, using these abilities, would use his combat theory on the puppets, as using these strings on very small puppets, which mind you are fragile because they're small and they're not meant for combat, would cause them to zip around the room, moving at insane levels of speed thanks to the fact that they're so small and nimble that they're straight up moving at literally Chunin level speeds. And this is happening in his room, mind you. So Naruto, seeing this, would proceed to have the biggest smile on his face, as for the following weeks, Naruto would craft two puppets, which he would perfectly tailor to be combat-oriented puppets, which are going to be really small because Naruto wants the greater speed that comes along with them, not yet acknowledging that he could probably make a really big one, which he still hasn't done so, to do, more, crazy things. And so, as Naruto's working on all this, still in the classroom, he would be acting like the class clown, trying to get attention from people, because Naruto still is, kind of attention deprived and wants people to notice him, even if it's bad attention. And so Naruto's grades in this timeline are still not going to be reflecting his prodigious nature. So we would eventually get a day come around where Naruto and Kiba would be facing off against each other during their occasional sparring sessions. And so Naruto and Kiba turning towards each other would create the symbol of shinobi peace or whatever it is, as they both engage with each other, and Akamaru would go rushing towards Naruto immediately, with Kiba saying, "Come on, Akamaru." Akamaru doing so would then instantly be hit by two puppets that come flying in out of nowhere, which Naruto would be controlling using his puppeteer jutsu, and he would hit Akamaru, sending him crashing to the ground, as Kiba would be like, "What was that?" Suddenly, this small little toy looking object would come flying at his stomach as it would crash into him, and Kiba, holding his stomach, falling onto one knee, would be like, "What the?" as another puppet comes flying in at incredible speeds, hitting him in the face, causing Kiba to fall onto the ground unconscious, with Naruto realizing that his idea of using puppets for combat was perfect. Him thinking that he's the first one to ever do this, Ziruka Sensei, watching all this happen, would be extremely impressed with Naruto, saying, "Naruto, was that the puppet jutsu you were using just then?" With Naruto turning towards him and saying that was. He would be extremely shocked that Naruto was able to do this at his age, and he would, pretty much say that the winner for today is Naruto, acknowledging Naruto and giving him a head nod, with Naruto returning it. At this point, everything would start to change with Naruto, because he was no longer the class weakling. Now, Naruto was somebody that could actually hold his own and was instantly placed in the middle of the pack in terms of his combat abilities, thanks to just his puppeteer jutsu. That said, as time would pass, and mind you, Naruto's still 9 years old, so he still has 2 years in the academy left, would have more than enough time, or 1 year and a half really, maybe 1 year and a couple months realistically, to create more puppets, fine-tune his jutsu, and that's exactly what Naruto would do. By the end of this, Naruto would clearly be the strongest in the classroom in terms of a head-to-head match with Sasuke if that was to happen, but Naruto still wouldn't be the smartest, so he's not going to be winning Rookie of the Year or anything like that, but Naruto, safe to say, is a very capable shinobi in this timeline, and his personality would begin changing a lot, with him being a more calculated person and far more confident in his own abilities. Long gone would be the kid that was relying on dumb luck or knuckleheaded like ideas to pull through whenever and wherever, and so this version of Naruto would never have to go through that weird section of the story where Mizuki tricked him into essentially becoming a traitor to the village, and so Mizuki would never actually be able to get the scroll of sealing, leading to his eventual capture, and Naruto would simply be left to just join Team 7 like in the original, with the introductions happening just like they do in canon, and Naruto explaining that he wants to become the greatest puppet master that has ever lived. Kakashi hearing this would nod, acknowledging Naruto's drive and desire to become a puppet master, as everybody else would go on to give their own goals, and everything would pretty much remain like they do in the original. That said, we would then get the following day coming around where the team would be tasked with the bell test, which in this timeline is quickly going to become one of Naruto's first points of experience facing off against somebody truly powerful, a Jonin level combatant like Kakashi. So the bell test would begin. Kakashi would explain the rules, say 3, 2, 1, and the second that would happen, Naruto would actually go into hiding alongside Sakura and Sasuke, as out of nowhere, two puppets would appear, Harlequin and Quincy. With Harlequin obviously being based off of the first puppet that Naruto had ever had, being more of a taijutsu specialist puppet, a larger looking puppet around the same size as Kakashi that has insane mobility, flexibility, and durability, and is also pretty much a trickster puppet. And Quincy would be a small fast puppet with a bunch of sharp blades for speed, kind of like a spider, I guess you could say. But yeah, that said, Naruto doesn't exactly have the ability of carrying all the puppets that he has for offensive capabilities, because he keeps them in this like big backpack that he has that luckily his puppets were able to fold into like a way that they can actually fit in there. So with that being the case, out onto the battlefield would step out two puppets. As Kakashi noting this, looking up from his magazine or book that he would be reading, he would realize that that has to be Naruto's jutsu, wondering just how powerful these puppets are going to be, when suddenly Quincy would rush in towards the direction of Kakashi, being more of a diversion, with Kakashi actually being stunned by the speed of these puppets. He would be forced to put his makeout tactics book away as he would engage in a battle with this thing, only for Harlequin to come flying in towards Kakashi's direction and begin bombarding him with taijutsu abilities, which are incredible. Because if you're watching someone fight, it's so easy to just be like, oh, sweep kick, jump up into the air, throw a punch, do a kick, do this, spin in the air. And also it's a puppet, so it's able to move in such unorthodox ways that are just perfect for Naruto. It's able to spin its torso, spin its head, maneuver its arms in every single direction, punch omnidirectionally because of the fact that it's not, hindered by our joints, which are real human joints. So you can only punch forward, not backwards. These puppets are able to do exactly that. And so this would pose a huge issue for Kakashi, who, seeing this happen to him and being bombarded by these puppets, would quickly use the substitution jutsu to gain some distance between them. This said, Naruto would use his puppets to scour the area, as not being able to see what his puppets see would pose a big threat for Naruto. And so, running out of the forest, he would begin looking for Kakashi as he would say, "Hey, where'd you go? Don't tell me you're scared of my puppets." Kakashi would quickly arrive out of the trees as he would tap Naruto behind him, and in a flash, Quincy would come rushing in, shocking Kakashi that puppet was actually even faster than he had given him credit for. Kakashi had planned to simply take Naruto out right then and there, but Quincy was so fast that he didn't even have time to apply his tactic which he was going to use. And so, Kakashi would once again be bombarded by Quincy and Harlequin, who would attack at him, throwing punches and kicks, with Quincy actually nicking Kakashi a couple of times, forcing Kakashi to jump back and create a couple of clones which would actually go into the battle with him and fight against Quincy as well as Harlequin. With this being said, Harlequin would finally be able to take out two of the clones as he would rush in towards the real Kakashi, as Kakashi would nearly subdue the puppet, holding it face first, with the puppet looking up at Kakashi and like the puppet's basically facing downwards towards the ground, but the head quickly spins, looking at Kakashi as the mouth would open almost instantly, shooting a disgusting fart gas at Kakashi, which would cause Kakashi's eyes to instantly get teary-eyed, seeing as it was a trickster puppet. And dude, this man would just start practically crying from how bad that thing smelled. It penetrated through his mask, and Kakashi was pissed. The man instantly substitutes away as he would rush to the nearest source of water before taking his mask off and beginning to wash it down the river. He would then put it back on as it would have a little bit of a smell left behind, like the smell residue, and seeing this happen, he'd be pissed. Going back onto the battle to face off against the puppets, Kakashi would be ready to take Naruto out and show him why he's the Jonin and he's the Genin. But before that could happen, Sasuke would come running out of the bushes as he would begin to use his taijutsu to try to catch Kakashi off guard. However, Kakashi was not in the mood, proceeding to take Sasuke out instantly and leaving him knocked out completely, before then unveiling his Sharingan and rushing past Quincy and Harlequin at speeds that were just too much to handle for his puppets at this moment. Naruto, realizing that Kakashi knew exactly where he was, would panic, and his puppets not being fast enough to get to him in time would lead to Naruto being knocked out by Kakashi, as he would give Naruto a karate chop to the neck, who would have tried to fight back with his own taijutsu, but he just felt like he was a bit too weak for that, and so he was made to realize the main weakness of his puppeteer jutsu, the fact that Naruto can't even compete with his own puppets in terms of strength. So that being said, Naruto would wake up next to Sasuke on a pole, as Sakura would be sitting there going, Sasuke? Wake up, Sasuke! She begins tapping him as Sasuke would wake up groggily, and Naruto, overhearing this, would wake up as well. Sakura would be sitting there with the only bento bowl, as looking at the both of them and hearing Naruto's stomach growl, as well as Sasuke would realize that the both of them are hungry. Sakura, being who she is, would obviously offer some to Sasuke, and Naruto, still, being prideful and not really liking Sasuke, would just kind of like look away, just be like, I don't need any food, I'll fight him with my puppets anyways. With Sasuke pretty much telling Sakura that she needs to feed Naruto, saying that the team stands a better chance if they were all at full strength, acknowledging that he was nothing in comparison to their Jonin teacher Kakashi. And so she would begin to feed Naruto as well, with Kakashi arriving and being like, you passed, going on to explain the same thing that he would in the original, with the fact that they were willing to put themselves over the mission, and even though they weren't supposed to do this, they still did it. So Team 7 would be formed just like it is in the original, and we are now able to jump into 2 weeks worth of E-rank missions, with the team essentially, cleaning places, walking ladies down the streets, capturing cats, getting people's groceries, stuff like that. You get the point. While all that's taking place, Naruto would have been formulating a brand new version 2 Harlequin puppet, which was now actually going to be more durable, but also was going to be equipped with a new mechanic, which was essentially going to allow it to have a bunch of little puppets stored inside of its stomach, which can open, releasing like 10 small puppets, the ones that he used to play with as a kid, which essentially serve to be distractions or decoy puppets, which come in and land at like little, small damage onto the characters that he's facing off against. So that would be new, and he would also add blades onto the hands of Harlequin, making it a much more dangerous puppet, as well as adding 2 more arms onto Harlequin, making him have 4 arms and 2 legs, which is a really neat addition to Harlequin, which Naruto thought was really sick. So with that being the case, finally the time would come where the group would be assigned their first C-rank mission, protecting the bridge builder Tazuna, as they would escort him to the land of the waves, with the team grabbing all the things that they need, and Naruto packing that really heavy bulky backpack, which now weighed even more than it used to before, thanks to the fact that his new puppet Harlequin version 2 was extra bulky. Kakashi, taking note of this, would ask Naruto why it is exactly that he's carrying his puppets the way that he does, asking him if he doesn't have some sort of scroll where he can seal them inside of, making the whole process much easier. Naruto would be completely blissfully unaware of this, and after hearing that there's an easier way of carrying this thing, he would tell Kakashi that he'd love to hear more about it later on, but that for now they should focus on the ninjas that are ahead of them. With Kakashi being stunned that Naruto was able to recognize that the ninjas were hiding inside of the genjutsu, but not realizing that Naruto didn't literally mean the ninjas ahead of them, but the people that they were going to encounter during this mission. And so when the 2 demon brothers would finally come out of their genjutsu and attack them, Naruto, while caught off guard, would quickly quickly be able to use both of his puppets to lunge out at them, as each puppet would rush at a demon brother and proceed to land an absolutely fatal blow on each one of them. As the team seeing Harlequin's new design, they would all be stunned, being like, "Naruto, he looks a lot different, what did you do?" But Naruto would simply be like, "Don't worry about it," and Sasuke, seeing that Naruto's puppets were way faster than he was at reacting, would kind of just be like, whatever. He would think to himself that he could have taken them out as well, and he'd kind of be lying to himself because no, he couldn't take both of them out at the same time. But Kakashi would be very impressed with the fact that Naruto took what he learned against his battle with him and improved them, actually, formulating a strategy to get better, with Kakashi thinking that having somebody like him on his team, like Naruto, who learns from every mistake, is going to be a great thing in terms of him being a puppeteer user. So he would simply hope that Naruto doesn't make any fatal mistakes and they would continue the mission, before too long running into the demon of the mist, Zabuza Momochi. The team would all look up as they would be greeted to a man standing on a blade, as he would turn to Kakashi, telling him to hand over the bridge builder or he'll kill them all. Kakashi, looking at Zabuza, would tell him that that's not gonna happen, before then signaling to the team to step back, that he's gonna handle this. The team would do just that, taking a couple of steps back as Kakashi and Zabuza would begin their battle. And Naruto, watching this all in awe, would be extremely impressed with Kakashi, but not only Kakashi. Zabuza himself was a ninja not to be taken lightly, and his swordsmanship abilities were incredible. And Naruto would be enjoying every second of this battle, thinking of everything going on as footnotes which he could use to grow stronger himself, until finally, Kakashi, much like in the original, would still be captured by the water prison jutsu, which Naruto, seeing this, thinking that it's his moment to shine, would end up using Harlequin, which would rush towards the direction of Zabuza, with Zabuza creating a couple water clones to try to stop him from getting to him. These would be nothing in the sight of Harlequin, as with his new durability, it was able to actually tank Zabuza's sword strike and rush in, destroying each water clone, with Zabuza being stunned, understanding that the second that this puppet gets close, it could mean the death of him, would actually release Kakashi before the puppet could actually get much closer. And after this would take place, both Kakashi and Naruto, with his puppet jutsu, would actually tag team Zabuza, leading to a much easier defeat of the character. But eventually, much like in canon, Zabuza would arrive, only to take Zabuza away with him, as the team would be left with an exhausted Kakashi who they now have to tend to and nurse back at Tazuna's house. As this would then lead us to similar situations as in canon, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura learning the tree walking technique, which this time would be an absolute cinch for Naruto, with him learning it at almost the same time as Sakura, maybe like a minute more, but that's it. That said, Sasuke would have to watch as Naruto and Sakura, both in this time, are pretty much outshowing him, and his insecurity would start to get the better of him, as Sasuke in this specific arc would start acting more bratty, more angry, and more just irritable, which is something that the team would quickly notice. That said, as time would pass, Naruto would actually go on to question Kakashi on what he meant with the scroll and sealing his puppets now that he was finally awake. Naruto would end up finding out about the fact that there's scrolls for sealing techniques where you could actually store tools, you could actually use these scrolls for actually summoning actual creatures, but Naruto wasn't exactly quite there yet. But he did want to know how exactly the scroll worked in terms of summoning things like puppets. Kakashi would go on to explain that once they returned to the village, Naruto would easily be able to be given a scroll where he could actually, pretty much just by using his blood and placing it on top of the scroll, would actually be able to summon the things that he would place inside of the scroll, and it would have some pretty crazy limitations in terms of the things that you're able to store inside of it. So Naruto, once he hears this, would be extremely excited at the prospect of this, with him realizing that this does pose one new issue, that to actually access his puppets, he's going to be having to using this scroll to take them out beforehand. So Naruto realizes that this is going to be a huge problem, but because he has incredible chakra reserves, he probably could just have Harlequin be next to him at all times, so he'd be like a puppet user that constantly has a puppet walking next to him and just never saying anything. It's just with Naruto at all times, which which would be a little creepy moving forward with the story, but it's kind of sick also at the same time that he's always having his puppet with him. But with that said, we would finally get to the day where the bridge battle would happen, and Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi would all be ready for them. Haku and Zabuza would arrive as a thick mist would engulf the entire area, and Kakashi, taking note of this, would tell Naruto that just like he expected, Zabuza didn't come alone, telling him and Sasuke to handle that threat while Sakura protects the bridge builder and he handles Zabuza. The team would all nod, understanding every single one of their objectives, as Sasuke, feeling as though he had been outshined the entire time, would step forward, telling Naruto to simply sit back and watch, would go and rush in at Haku as the battle would begin. Sasuke would begin the battle by rushing in at Haku as fast as he possibly can, and Haku would clash with him with the ice senbon in his hand, as both of them would go blow for blow at the beginning, with Sasuke thinking that he's doing more than well enough holding his own, but as the battle would progress and the seconds would pass, Haku would get faster and faster after having read his opponent for a bit, and would finally get into one final clash with Sasuke, which would be a senbon versus kunai clash. As this is happening, Haku would begin weaving hand signs with one hand, shocking both Sasuke and Naruto, who would be watching in awe, as Haku would begin to form the demonic ice crystal jutsu, as mirrors would begin forming around Sasuke, and out of nowhere Haku would disappear, floating into one of them, as his reflection would be seen staring back at Sasuke, as a voice would come out of multiple different mirrors, and Sasuke would look around being like, what? Which one is... But suddenly, senbon needles would begin coming flying in at Sasuke, who would begin getting pierced left and right. Naruto, seeing this, would realize that unless he steps in with his puppet, Sasuke's gonna die. So Quincy and Harlequin would finally come out to play, as both of them would rush towards the direction of the ice mirror, stepping inside, trying to land an attack on Haku, who would be blitzing from mirror to mirrors too fast for Naruto's eyes to even keep up with. The puppets could maybe land an attack on Haku, but Naruto just can't even keep up with Haku's movements at this point. And as the puppets are inside of there alongside Sasuke trying to land blows, they would all be beginning to be worn down slowly, with Sasuke getting weaker and weaker until eventually he would awaken his Sharingan through sheer willpower. But even this wouldn't be enough for Sasuke, as Haku, being annoyed at the fact that this battle's taking longer, would finally take things seriously before throwing multiple senbon needles at Sasuke, which wear him down to the point where it looks like he dies. He would fall to the ground, as Naruto, watching this, would yell out, "Sasuke, don't die on me!" As Naruto's puppet standing there would simply look towards the direction of Haku inside of the mirrors, and Naruto, realizing that his inability to help Sasuke literally just led to his comrade's death, would begin to eat at Naruto, with him awakening the power of the Nine Tails for the very first time. His eyes would turn to a crimson-like color, as both puppets that he has would actually both begin flowing with red chakra, which would begin powering them. Naruto, using the newfound power of Kurama, would have red chakra threads, which would be distorted ones, as both the puppets would rush towards the direction of the mirrors so fast that they would actually shatter them with one blow. Haku, seeing this, would of course throw senbon at them, but they're puppets, they can tank this without a doubt. So Haku would eventually be cornered till the final mirror is finally left, and Haku, leaping out of it, would attempt to rush at Naruto, who was the user of the puppet jutsu, to take him out. But before he could even do that, Harlequin would latch onto Haku with all four of his limbs, not letting him move, as Naruto would get closer and closer to Haku and would punch him square in the face with his Nine Tails amped punch, breaking the mask and breaking Haku's nose. In this moment, Haku would simply stare back at Naruto, as he would feel absolutely nothing for Haku in this moment, as Kakashi and Naruto would both land finishing blows on their opponents, leading to Haku and Zabuza both dying in a similar fashion, being restrained by summons for Kakashi and puppets for Naruto, as they would land their ultimate kill blow, taking out their opponents. After this would happen, both of them would fall to the ground, and Naruto and Kakashi would look at each other, with Sakura screaming, "Sasuke!" Finally realizing that he was unconscious or dead or whatever. Naruto would go up to Sasuke, as he would be thinking that that it's the worst case scenario. Touching onto one of his, like pretty much wrist to see if he has a pulse, he would actually feel something as Naruto's anger would quickly subside and Naruto would realize that he's alive. Naruto in this moment would quickly start thanking his maker at the fact that this played out this way, as after this would happen, we would essentially get a scene of Naruto and the team being run up on by Gato and all of his men. Now obviously we know that in the original, Zabuza ran through all these guys and proceeded to get to Gato and finally kill him. In this timeline, however, that's not going to be happening, and instead we're actually going to be getting a scene of Naruto using Harlequin's new trick that he ended up having up his sleeve, would actually release all of the small little puppets that he had inside of him, as Naruto, using all the puppets as his disposal, would clash against each of Gato's men, ultimately killing them with ease, as the smaller puppets would be so hard to even hit by the other untrained men that just couldn't keep up with their speed, leading to Gato being the last one left, with Naruto asking what he should do with him. All these puppets being under his control would impress Kakashi, who would watch Naruto meticulously use each and every single one to just take out their opponents, would realize that Naruto is just not afraid of the moment, and he is going to be an incredible shinobi. At this point, we would then see all the townspeople arriving, as they would end up pretty much telling Naruto to hand Gato to them. And Gato's fate is a little too bad for me to even mention it on YouTube, so I'll leave that up to your imagination. But with the battle being over, Naruto would stare at the corpse of Haku, realizing just how powerful he was with his ice kicking Genkai that he had access to, capable of pushing him to the brink. And Naruto knows that if it wasn't for that unknown power he simply tapped into, there was absolutely no way that he was going to be able to defeat Haku. And Zabuza as well. He was an incredible shinobi. Naruto would wonder if there's any way to use them somehow, as quietness would ensue, and Naruto, using his chakra threads, would actually connect them to the dead corpses of Haku and Zabuza, who, having absolutely no willpower, are completely unable to be like, no, you can't control me. So Haku and Zabuza would both stand up, as this would shock Sakura, who'd be like, what? They're alive, Kakashi sensei? Kakashi, turning to see Zabuza and Haku standing up, would realize that Naruto was using his puppeteer jutsu to actually bring life back to their dead bodies. Kakashi, seeing this, would kind of nod in disapproval, thinking that this is just kind of inhumane, all the while Naruto, having access to Haku and Zabuza as newfound puppets, would think that this is amazing, knowing that this is kind of, a little bit bad to do, but even he understands that having access to them for the village would be such a big deal. So though Naruto understands that this is kind of unethical, he would end up taking Haku and Zabuza's bodies back to the village with him, as Team 7 would make their way back to the village, being followed by Haku and Zabuza's corpses, which Naruto would have puppeteered the entire way home, meaning that the team had to watch Haku and Zabuza's dead bodies follow them, along with the putrid smell that comes with the rotting corpse. So it was not exactly a pretty sight for the team. But once they ended up arriving to the village and Kakashi explained all of this to Hiruzen would kind of be a little sick to his stomach at the thought that he did that to their corpses, but what's he gonna do? It's not like this is the first time, to Hiruzen's knowledge, that someone has used something like that as a puppet master. So Hiruzen, although he finds it a bit strange and will never understand why puppet masters do it, he understands why Naruto would use jutsu like this. So during the week that they have to prepare for the Chunin exams, Naruto would develop the same exact jutsu, maybe a bit different than the one that Sasori uses, to essentially use dead corpses as a puppet, and he would do exactly that with Zabuza and Haku, adding little mechanical or wooden parts to their bodies to essentially make it so that he's able to access all their chakra and strength and abilities they had during their lifetime without sacrificing the durability that a rotting corpse would have. So with these new renditions to Naruto's arsenal, Naruto would already start looking a lot more dangerous, and with that being the case, the team would step into the Chunin exams ready to face anything head on, as Rock Lee, much like in the original, would still challenge Sasuke. Sasuke would still end up losing to Lee just like in the original, much to his chagrin, but with that being the case, the team would make their way inside, with Naruto passing the written exam by nothing but sheer luck, considering he can't exactly have linked vision with his puppets, because it's not like he has some sort of crazy dojutsu. And we've never been able to see that being an ability that happens with puppets, so there's no reason for me to start thinking that that's real now. That said, they would finally make their way into the Forest of Death, and once inside, Naruto, Sakura, Harlequin, and Sasuke would be jumping from tree to tree as they would all be looking for somebody that has the scroll that they need. They end up encountering a team and taking them out, but they would realize that they had the same exact scroll, so they would let them go, and unfortunately for them, they end up bumping into Gaara later on, which means that they die. But hey, it's not like Team 7 did that. That said, Orochimaru, still being a threat in this timeline, would rush towards the direction of the team, as the encounter that we get would be much like the one in the original, except Naruto would be here present. So Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura would all begin to crumble under the pressure of this bloodlust, but Naruto would actually have a bit of a smile on his face, thinking that this is the perfect opportunity to test out his new puppets. Suddenly, Zabuza and Haku would come out of Naruto's scroll, as Orochimaru would now be facing off against Harlequin, Zabuza, and Haku. The battle would begin, as it would be intense off the bat. Zabuza would rush in towards the direction of Orochimaru as he would quickly dodge, telling Naruto that he's impressive, that he's one of the greatest puppet master users he's seen in a while, excluding Sasori, he would say out loud. Naruto, hearing that name and never having heard it before in his life, would question who that is, as Orochimaru, through dodging the attacks of Haku and Harlequin, would say that that's the greatest puppet master he's ever met. Naruto, hearing this, would say, well, after I beat you, I'm gonna be the best puppet master you've ever met. As, you would see the puppets rush back in towards Orochimaru, with him, kind of taking them as a joke, before Haku would actually surprise Orochimaru by using his Ice Kick Genkai to shoot multiple projectile icicles at Orochimaru's direction, with him thinking, interesting, so you have an Ice Kick Genkai, part of the insert blank here clan. He would then pretty much rush towards the direction as Haku, as suddenly Harlequin, rushing towards Haku and, pretty much standing in front of him, would proceed to have his stomach open, like two little latches would release, and a bunch of little puppets would rush in towards the direction of Orochimaru, actually catching him off guard, who didn't expect a bunch of little puppets to come out of a big puppet, kind of like on some Trojan horse type moment. These puppets would actually land on Orochimaru, and they would actually nick him, but Orochimaru would simply just fight through the pain and continue rushing towards the direction of Haku, actually hitting Harlequin and sending him away. But simultaneously, Zabuza would come flying in, as with his blade, he would proceed to slash at Orochimaru's arm and cut it clean off, as he would hold his blade out in front of him, and Haku would shoot an ice geyser at him, which would be a pillar of ice that would send Orochimaru back. Orochimaru at this point would actually lick his lips before saying, interesting, you have lots of potential, as Naruto would watch in horror while Orochimaru would use his weird, body transfer jutsu to essentially spit out a new body, but this time without that weird mask that he was wearing in this timeline. And as this would happen, Sasuke would be watching, pissed at himself, thinking that there's no way that Naruto of all people has been showing him up this many times, able to fight against Orochimaru with seemingly no fear. And you would think that's the case, but no, Naruto's pretty terrified. It's just that all that he has to do to actually face off against Orochimaru is essentially stand there and move his fingers to, manipulate the puppets to move. So even though he is terrified, he's able to do the bare minimum to keep up with Orochimaru. And after having landed that strike, he would actually gain the confidence to fully lock in and start to actually try his hardest. Mind you, that wasn't even Naruto at full 100% potential, but that wasn't Orochimaru either at 100%. So after this would happen, Orochimaru would blitz in, as in a really cool scene, Zabuza would go in to land a strike, cutting him in half, but Orochimaru would limbo that attack, going underneath it in practically slow motion, as Haku, shooting an ice geyser at his direction, would nearly catch Orochimaru off guard, who would use the substitution jutsu, as a log would be frozen mid-air, and Orochimaru would rush in towards the direction of Harlequin, who was now rushing in to engage with him with taijutsu, but Orochimaru would just be too fast and would ultimately land an attack, sending Harlequin crashing into a tree. After this happens, Sasuke, who was watching this from afar, would finally have enough of being nothing but a bystander, as he would rush in towards the direction of Orochimaru, with Orochimaru grinning, saying, "Perfect, come Sasuke." He would, activate his Sharingan as he would try to keep up with Orochimaru, but he was just too much. And Haku once again would try using his Senbon needles, or technically Naruto would, but they would just all be, kind of ineffective, considering that Sasuke was facing off against Orochimaru, so Naruto couldn't freely use this jutsu, and Orochimaru would proceed to turn the tide of the battle completely, manhandling Sasuke, all the while Naruto was sat there watching this battle take place. A bunch of the little puppets that Harlequin would have released earlier would begin to rush at Orochimaru, trying to catch him off guard once more, but Orochimaru, seeing this jutsu have played out before him once, would just not allow it to hit, and ultimately Naruto would be completely embarrassed, as having no opportunity to even tap into the Nine Tails or have a situation present itself where Naruto's able to, there's just no way that these puppets were going to be able to keep up with somebody that's already on Kage level like Orochimaru. And so he would be able to easily land his curse mark on Sasuke's neck, with him being really impatient for the battle, and ultimately take Naruto out, with him landing a concussive blow on Naruto's head, knocking him clean out as he would be sent ricocheting into a tree, with Sakura being left standing there just watching as Sasuke would have fallen from a high tree and landed on the ground, and currently would be making absolutely no movement. And you just have Naruto laying on the ground with blood coming out of his nose, and his puppets would be on the ground completely just done for in this moment. After this, Sakura would proceed to walk over towards the body of Naruto and Sasuke, picking them up and taking them to a nearby cave where she would proceed to nurse the both of them back to health. A couple of hours later, the Sound Genin would end up arriving, and just like in the original, the Sound Genin would proceed to push Sakura as well as some of the rookie 12 to their utmost limit, until finally, Sasuke would wake up and, using the newfound power of his curse mark, would absolutely embarrass the Sound Genin, snapping one of its members' arms in two, as Sasuke would only stop once Sakura was able to fully get through to him. Couple of moments later, Naruto would wake up to see the horrific display that Sasuke would have put on, and interestingly enough, Naruto would actually think that it was impressive, thinking that Sasuke has gotten a lot stronger with whatever that newfound power is. They would end up ultimately making their way towards the Chunin Tower, with Naruto actually running back into the forest after the fact to go grab the remainder of his puppets, actually all of them. After this would end up taking place, we would have the team waiting for a couple of hours, as the following contestants of the test would finally end up arriving, and we would then get the 1v1 battles. Naruto would be faced off against Kiba, and safe to say, it's a bit of a replay of what ended up happening last time, except this time, the massacre was a little worse. Kiba would have been absolutely decimated by Haku's ice crystal mirror in front of everybody, with Naruto wanting to show off the strength of his newfound puppets. And safe to say that after displaying this newfound power, he would easily be ranking up there among the strongest Genin participating in the Chunin exams at the moment, if not the strongest. That said, we would essentially get 1 month of break before the next battles would begin, as during this time, Naruto, instead of in the original where he would have begged Kakashi to essentially try to train him, and then try to get Ebisu to train him, I think, or was Ebisu just forced onto him? I'm not entirely positive. No, yeah, Ebisu was forced onto him. Instead of having that entire situation play out, we're essentially going to be watching Naruto for the next week essentially focus on fixing Zabuza and also making much needed improvements to his puppet Harlequin, making the puppet out of a different type of wood, making it much lighter than before, but also a little bit more durable, and also giving it the newfound ability of having 2 more arms, meaning that now Harlequin was a 6-armed puppet that was given a new ability to split its arms and legs from its body to essentially land high speed attacks that people just weren't going to see coming. Imagine Harlequin rushing at you, and then out of nowhere its arms and legs just pop off, or at least 4 of its arms come flying at you and start pretty much attacking you, making you essentially have to contend with like 3 people fighting you all at the same time, because you know the arms are punching at you, you're pretty much getting jumped by Harlequin himself. And that wouldn't be all that Naruto does. Naruto also would have taken some inspiration from another puppet user, Kankuro, in the Chunin exams, someone that Naruto would very much have liked to fight, but I'm pretty sure that Kankuro ended up opting out of his battle. And so we end up essentially getting Naruto implementing poison into his actual puppet, making it a lot more deadlier, not because of its brute force, but simply because of the new tricks that are implemented into it. Also having a poison gas, which Naruto was going to be adding into his puppet alongside his fart gas that is already just extremely comedic. Oh, and one more thing, upon killing it or like destroying the puppet entirely, it's gonna end up pretty much releasing this like tear gas that is essentially going to serve to pretty much blind his opponents if they were to destroy Harlequin. Also implementing this into Zabuza, which he also ends up fixing and making a lot better in terms of durability, to make sure that Zabuza never gets destroyed the way that Orochimaru would have pulled off in the forest fight. That said, after this would happen, we would finally get the introduction of Jiraiya to the story, with him essentially offering to train young Naruto. Now, obviously Naruto's whole thing is being a puppet master, so if Jiraiya was a puppet master, he's all over it. But because he's not, I don't see Naruto being like, oh, like I want to train with you so badly, and instead it'd be kind of hilarious watching as Jiraiya would essentially try to sell himself to Naruto, being like, what kid, I'm a legendary Sannin. Once Naruto hears that, not exactly knowing of what the legendary Sannin's capabilities are, I don't really see him like instantly just caving to the pressure, so Jiraiya would have to show him what he's talking about. And so Naruto would actually end up accepting Jiraiya's training, opting to actually work on his physical capabilities alone, cleaning up his taijutsu abilities and also learning how to use the summoning jutsu from Jiraiya, which would be a big freaking deal, considering that Naruto now officially has that gigantic toad on his side, and also because of that would have ended up learning how to tap into the power and slightly control Kurama's no-tail state, where his eyes, where he gets like a little bit of the Kyuubi's power. That's what Naruto has access to at the current moment. And with that being said, original Naruto with just this in his arsenal would have been capable of taking Neji out. Now you add on the fact that he's a puppeteer and has all these things that Neji can't exactly counter by simply just punching the air. The battle between himself and Neji is sure to be an interesting one. And so we would skip to exactly that, with Naruto and Neji inside of the ring, with Neji turning to Naruto and telling him that he shouldn't have even showed up, saying that he was going to embarrass him in front of all these people and show everybody why the Hyuga clan is the best in the entire village. Naruto, not really caring about his clan lineage or anything like that, would simply be gutting for the title of a Chunin just to pretty much improve his ranking in the village. That said, Neji would get into his fighting stance, as Naruto, not having the need to use Haku or Zabuza, would simply use Harlequin, who was standing next to him the whole time, and Neji, turning towards it, would wonder how exactly Naruto's gonna choose to play this. The battle would begin and Harlequin would be used to rush in at Neji, as Kankuro, watching this display, would think to himself that Naruto is nothing but an amateur and he would easily defeat him. But there is one thing that he has thought of, the fact that Naruto has a jutsu where he can seemingly control dead corpses. Kankuro would start to, remember that there is somebody who's doing that, and that person is Sasori of the Red Sand. So we would pretty much end up getting the battle between Neji and Naruto's, I was gonna say clone, but yeah, it's not a clone, it's puppet. What's his name again? I just blanked. Oh yeah, Harlequin. Harlequin would come in as he would attack Neji, and Neji would normally try to go for chakra points, but seeing as it's a puppet, he's not exactly able to. And as he's clashing and dodging all these blows, he would end up throwing a strike, which is pretty much opting to have like the whole entire thing shatter in one go. As he does this, Harlequin's forearms would erupt from his body as they would rush at Neji in all different angles. And so Neji would have to redirect his blow and actually counter with the 64 palm, like, no, I don't even know what it's called, but the trigram like blocking thing where he spins around really fast and he ends up creating like a vortex that blocks things. That's what Neji would do to counter this attack. Naruto, seeing this display in action, would actually smile, thinking that that's pretty impressive. He would wonder if he could truly counter everything. And so Naruto would summon Haku by taking his scroll out and quickly biting on his thumb and putting his finger on the scroll. Haku would appear as Naruto would tell Neji that he's curious how long he can keep that perfect defense up. And so Haku would begin zipping from mirror to mirror as he would begin throwing senbon after senbon after senbon after senbon, and seeing as these senbon are made out of literal ice, it's just never ending. Haku's ability to be a puppet is so incredibly useful to Naruto that using Haku as a puppet would actually end up pretty much just beating Neji in a battle of endurance, with him not being able to keep up the rotation long enough, and so senbon needles would begin coming at Neji, piercing him from different angles, as suddenly Harlequin would actually latch onto Neji and restrain his arms, and Neji would be in a position where he has no way of giving up. The needles would begin piling up and Neji would simply fall to the ground completely unconscious, with Naruto simply standing there and smirking as he would walk away and the ice mirrors would dissipate, with Harlequin walking by his side and just kind of looking like he's like a bodyguard to Naruto. Harlequin looking super imposing, even though he's not even Naruto's strongest puppet, but trust me, he will be one day. Some way, somehow, I'm gonna figure out a way to make Harlequin one of Naruto's strongest puppets. But with Naruto's victory out of the way, we're able to move on to the next battles, which essentially amount to not much, considering that we know exactly how everything else goes, so it's not much of a surprise to us. And with that said, we're able to just immediately jump into the attack on the village. After Sasuke and Gaara's fight, Gaara would lose his mind rushing out of the village, as that would be the perfect signal for the Sand Village to end up using their sleepy jutsu, or whatever it is that you want to call it. After this happens, Naruto would be signaled by Kakashi with a simple head nod to essentially go after Sasuke and make sure he's safe. Naruto, realizing this, would end up chasing after Sasuke, simply thinking to himself that he's annoyed at this, that he wanted to get a chance to face off against that puppet master, seeing as they're the ones attacking the village. And so, as Naruto's making his way through the forest, he would finally end up encountering none other than the person that he wanted to see the most, Kankuro. Naruto, looking at Kankuro, would ask him if he really thinks that dinky puppet of his can compete with Harlequin, and Kankuro would tell him that this is all he's going to be needing. Naruto, turning to Kankuro, would tell him that he swears as a puppeteer that this is the only puppet he's going to be using for this battle, and he's going to absolutely wreck that piece of trash he calls a puppet. At this point, Kankuro would begin the battle by causing his puppet to rush at Naruto's direction, and it would begin to clash with Naruto's puppet, catching Naruto off guard when its puppet would actually end up taking out secret weapons that are inside of hidden compartments, with Naruto seeing this and being like, how did I not think of that? Having a facepalm moment, realizing that he had never considered hiding literal weapons in his puppet's arms, so that once it got close, it didn't even actually have to close the distance. It could simply like shoot out a blade or something like that. Naruto would be annoyed as his puppet would actually take some damage due to Kankuro, and then Naruto would decide that it's time to get serious. Harlequin would rush back in as his head and arms would begin flailing out in different directions, and it would begin to actually land different blows. Obviously, the poison's not going to be affecting a puppet, and Kankuro's puppet would be tanking all of this like a champ, as Kankuro simply watches on with a smirk, thinking that this guy really is an amateur. He's a fool when it comes to controlling puppets. He might have some powerful ones at his disposal, but he still hasn't mastered the art of being a puppet master. And as Naruto would land blow after blow after blow on this puppet, Kankuro would simply smirk as he would pretend to be worried, being like, what? How did you? As Naruto's Harlequin puppet would get closer into Kankuro before landing a strike on him, with Naruto smirking as he would have successfully landed a deadly attack on Kankuro. But the second this would land, Kankuro would actually turn to sand, as it would be revealed that it was Kankuro's puppet all along. At this moment, a second puppet would come in out of nowhere as it would push Harlequin into its Iron Maiden jutsu, and suddenly it would close completely, with Naruto watching in complete shock as he's like, how did you? And out of nowhere, a bunch of spikes would come into the coffin as it would proceed to absolutely stab Harlequin from every direction, as Kankuro would defeat Naruto. Is what I would say if Harlequin wasn't extremely flexible and able to bend its joints in such strange ways that even if those things were stabbing into the box, Harlequin was completely uninjured. Kankuro would open his Iron Maiden jutsu, smirking at Naruto, as Naruto would look in awe, as he would then smile and Kankuro would be like, what? How did it? before an arm would actually come behind Kankuro and stab him in the side of his gut, with Kankuro finally realizing that the puppet that he had trapped inside was actually missing an arm, never having noticed that that arm was actually being controlled by Naruto the entire time and he was just playing him for a fool. Kankuro would fall down onto the ground as his eyes would get dizzy, and Naruto would smile as he would think that that guy was a good puppet master. He was just a better one. He would continue off searching for Sasuke, as Shino, watching that entire battle, normally would have stepped in, but knowing that this was personal for Naruto, decided to opt out of that, just simply watching the battle from afar. Naruto, turning his neck, would end up nodding at Shino's direction, as Shino would nod back, and Naruto would finally make his way to where Gaara and Sasuke were fighting. Gaara would go to throw a final finishing punch, as Naruto, using one of his puppets that he uses essentially just to tank blows, would pretty much stand right in front of Sasuke, as it would tank the entire blow of Gaara's punch, Sasuke watching a puppet blow up in his face, as Naruto would say, "Look what you made me do, Sasuke, I had to sacrifice one for you," as four arms would come flying in at Gaara, all trying to attack him, but Gaara dodges each one easily, smiling, saying, "You think a puppeteer could handle me? If one could, Kankuro would have done it long ago," as Naruto, turning towards Gaara, would simply say that a puppeteer can't, but he can. As behind Naruto, all of the puppets that he has created up to this point would be revealed, and every single one of them would rush at Gaara's direction, who would begin to be absolutely wrecked from every angle. This would serve to piss Gaara off, as they would be able to land blows that would weaken him more and more, but the poison wouldn't take as much of an effect on Gaara, thanks to the fact that he is a Jinchuriki and has like a healing factor thanks to what's his tailed beast name? Shukaku. That said, Gaara would end up getting so unbelievably upset that he would eventually transform into the One Tails form, and Naruto, seeing this, would simply smirk, saying that he's glad he finally has an opportunity to use the damn toad, as he would bite on his finger, summoning Gamabunta, as the battle would now turn into one of Kaiju's, with Naruto being the victor, after having used his puppet's limbs to essentially shoot towards Gaara's direction, snapping him back into reality, as Sasuke would watch in awe that Naruto was still better than him, and the dude didn't even have to lift a finger. Kind of funny because that's all he's doing, but still, you get what I'm trying to say. Sasuke would watch as he would see puppets and Gamabunta fighting against Gaara, as Naruto would simply be standing in front of him, with Sasuke watching in awe at the fact that Naruto's capable of all this, thinking, how does he even have this much chakra? There's no way. But unfortunately for Sasuke, there is definitely a way. After this would happen, Gaara's body would land on the ground, as Naruto would mercilessly kill Gaara, needing Gaara to be his puppet. As for the first time in the story, a bit of a jaded, darker side of Naruto would finally come out. Naruto wants stronger puppets. There's no easier way for Naruto than to simply turn someone into a puppet. Naruto would finish killing Gaara, as Kankuro and Temari would end up arriving, as Temari would yell out Gaara's name in anguish, because at the end of the day, that is her sibling. She would proceed to tell Naruto that he's a monster and he's unethical, that she knows what he's planning to do with his body. She would say that she's not gonna let him, but Kankuro would actually hold Temari's shoulder, telling her to stand down, that the two of them together wouldn't be capable of taking him down, as he would give him a glare and simply walk off weakly, understanding that in this case, Naruto's kind of within his right to do this, considering that they attacked them, not the other way around. And so, Konoha would proceed to clean up everything after the attack, with Naruto successfully transforming Gaara into his very own puppet. Much like Sasori has Rasa, Naruto's gonna be having Gaara. And I just had to do this. Originally, I was gonna let Gaara live so that maybe we could have a Sand Kazekage search mission, but dude, I just couldn't let the opportunity of Naruto having a sand puppet user. That's just so sick. Imagine the battle between Sasori and Naruto the day that they pull up and they end up fighting against each other. That's just gonna be so sick in my opinion, so I had to. And even though this Naruto isn't exactly evil, he's not gonna be past killing someone in order to simply use them as a puppet. So, with that said, after these events, Hiruzen would still die like in the original, and Jiraiya would end up requesting Naruto's help for the Tsunade retrieval mission. We begin this arc with Naruto and Jiraiya making their way towards one of the lands where Jiraiya has a sneaking suspicion that Tsunade is probably going to be at. And on their way there, just like in the original timeline, Naruto and Jiraiya would have a lot of time to chatter between each other, with Naruto asking Jiraiya about what he knows about other puppet users. Jiraiya would go on to explain that the other only puppet user that he knows of other than Kankuro is one known as Sasori of the Red Sand, explaining stories about him and essentially getting to the point that he's actually now currently a rogue shinobi and a member of the organization known as the Akatsuki. Naruto would go into question Jiraiya about who the Akatsuki are, but Jiraiya would just sadly kind of look at Naruto, telling him that for now they don't really know that much about them, saying that at the moment he's not sure what their goals are, but they do actually have a little bit of information about who the members are. But funny enough, all the while they're having this conversation, the Akatsuki members Itachi and Kisame would be in the Leaf Village. That situation would end up playing out just like you would expect it to, which means that Kakashi would end up getting caught in Itachi's Tsukiyomi, all the while Naruto would be with Jiraiya. But in this specific timeline, I just don't see a world where he's going to be learning the Rasengan. Naruto's just too focused on trying to be the greatest puppet master. So yes, of course he can learn a jutsu, which is going to make him more formidable in the combat side of himself, but Naruto doesn't really think that he needs that, considering that he does have the power of the Nine Tails. That's something that Naruto's going to just have to, put all his marbles into and bet it all on that. So with that being the case, Naruto and Jiraiya would continue going from town to town until eventually Jiraiya would be caught off guard by a woman who would be very persuasive, taking a large majority of Jiraiya's money actually, all the while Naruto would be back in the room simply tinkering and finishing up the last minute details on Gaara, his brand new puppet. Naruto would actually test out Gaara's abilities by causing Gaara to create a small tidbit of sand, like a sand orb, that would just kind of start floating around. Naruto, realizing how many purposes this sand Kikigenkai has, would have a huge bright smile appear on his face, knowing that Gaara is 100% his strongest puppet at the moment. But this would actually get Naruto to start reflecting on his encounter during the Chunin exams, specifically with Orochimaru, as Naruto would actually start dreaming about a world where he was able to actually defeat Orochimaru and use him as a puppet himself. Naruto would think to himself that having somebody like that, a legendary Sannin, someone capable of killing Hiruzen himself, would have been perfect. But as he thinks that, Naruto would remember that Hiruzen's dead, and he would kind of go silent for a second, not having taken the time to acknowledge the fact that the guy who literally taught him everything that he knows, kind of, when it comes to his puppet jutsus, and the one responsible for him even getting into the puppets in the first place is now dead. Naruto would actually be a little sad, but as he starts to ponder on this, suddenly you would just hear a at the door. As Naruto would go to answer it, thinking that it's just room service trying to come clean the door, Naruto would quickly go over to pretty much tell them that he's busy, when he would be greeted to the side of Kisame and Itachi. Naruto, seeing this, would jump back, as using his Gaara puppet he would proceed to create a sand door, blocking the entrance of the room, as Naruto would yell from behind it asking what business they have here, with Kisame using his blade to actually cut the door in half and simply walking right through, telling him that they're here to collect his nine-tailed beast. Naruto, hearing that, would realize that this is serious, knowing that these are members of the Akatsuki. From what he remembers from Jiraiya's conversation, they were men wearing black robes with red clouds on them, and these guys fit that description to a T. So Naruto would not take these guys lightly at all, and would instantly begin the battle by shooting a massive amount of sand towards their direction, which Kisame would easily destroy with his chakra blade, siphoning the chakra out of the sand itself, making him and Samehara grow even stronger. That being the case, and Naruto knowing that Jiraiya is not with him, and he's not dumb enough to think that he can handle two Akatsuki members, would actually proceed to flood the entire room in sand, as he would try to use the sand coffin technique on them. But unfortunately for Naruto, these guys were just above those techniques, and Naruto ended up essentially having to run out of the building with his Gaara puppet right next to him. Naruto would get enough time to summon his scroll, as he would have just enough time to actually summon each and every single one of his puppets, Doing so, Kisame and Itachi would finally catch up to Naruto, as on top of the building, you would just see every single puppet that Naruto's ever had the time to create, with a couple extra ones being added on, and Harlequin actually having been given a couple more improvements. Nothing too crazy to actually make note of, but you know, I figured I'd mention it anyways. That said, every single one of these puppets would rush towards the direction of Itachi and Kisame, and unfortunately for Naruto, the moment that he actually would have looked into Itachi's eyes, he would have used his genjutsu prowess to actually fool Naruto into thinking that Itachi and Kisame were standing in slightly different places. So the puppets would be attacking figments of Naruto's imagination, and all the while he thinks that he's doing good, Kisame would actually bring his sword down on Naruto, slashing him with the blunt half of it, as he would send him crashing back into the building, with Naruto snapping out of it, realizing that he was under genjutsu that whole time. Naruto would wonder how in the world that man could even use genjutsu that incredibly powerful. But regardless of that, Naruto knew he was going to have to figure some way to hold these two off, just until Jiraiya could arrive. Naruto would avoid looking into Itachi's eyes for the rest of the fight, using his puppets to try to keep them all at bay, Haku using his ice, Gaara using his Saiyan jutsu, and Zabuza coming in to actually try to face off against Kisame, with Kisame actually smiling at the prospect that this kid is using Zabuza as a puppet. Kisame facing off against Zabuza would think, "So, you were turned into a puppet, weren't you, Zabuza? I always knew you were weak," rushing in and slashing Zabuza in two, just showing the astronomical difference between Zabuza, which was a part 1 villain, and Kisame, who actually ended up being one of the strongest characters in the series. So that said, Naruto would watch as Kisame would absolutely manhandle Zabuza and realize that the difference between the two was absolutely terrifying. Using Haku, Naruto would actually go on to create the demonic ice crystal mirror jutsu inside of this place, as Haku would blitz from mirror to mirror to mirror, but interestingly enough, Itachi would be able to keep up with Haku's movements perfectly, eventually opting to simply use his Amaterasu jutsu to simply melt the mirrors, leading Haku to just simply stand there having no more access to his demonic ice crystal mirror jutsu, with Naruto realizing that this guy was the worst possible opponent that he could go up against at the moment, just due to the fact that if that thing gets on his puppets, they're done for. He's either going to have to break them and destroy them to at least try to salvage them, because if that lands successfully, his puppets are done for, and that's extremely disadvantageous for somebody like Naruto, who relies on these carcass puppets, which he can't exactly just duplicate out of thin air. So Naruto would quickly pull Haku back out of the battle and use Gaara to keep Itachi and Kisame away, who would simply cut at the sand, telling Naruto that this is nothing but a joke. Meanwhile though, Sasuke would be going from hotel room to hotel room as he would finally hear loud noises of fighting. He would rush towards that building, making his way inside, screaming Itachi's name before trying to plunge a Chidori into his chest, but just like in the original, this would be completely unsuccessful, and after this would fail, Itachi would go on to place Sasuke under the Tsukiyomi jutsu, telling him that he doesn't have enough hate in his heart, as he would take Sasuke out, and luckily for Naruto, Jiraiya would arrive just in time to actually back Naruto up, leading Itachi to actually decide to retreat, not wanting to face off against Naruto and Jiraiya at the same time, lying and saying that even though they're powerful, they couldn't hope to fight someone like that. Naruto, seeing this moment, not knowing the truth about Itachi, would actually be extremely amazed at Jiraiya, realizing that those two opponents that Naruto was struggling immensely up against and probably would have died against because they were perfect counters to him at this moment, would actually be super intrigued with Jiraiya and have a lot more respect for him going forward, actually going on to ask Jiraiya what truly makes him so formidable as an opponent, because being honest, he doesn't really see too much in Jiraiya that would make him seem like such a worthwhile adversary. Jiraiya hearing that would be like, "What? Are you serious, kid?" as he would go on to inform him that he's learned the art of Sage Mode, something that could easily make him one of the strongest characters in the world, just due to the fact that not many people are even able to access this ability, saying that for what he knows, he and maybe Tsunade are the only people able to actually access these powers, with Naruto being stunned, asking if Orochimaru's was able to do this as well, and Jiraiya saying that he's not sure. This would leave Naruto wanting to learn more about Sage Mode earlier on, and this would be an incredible thing because adding Sage Mode to his puppets would definitely enhance the quality of puppeteering that Naruto's able to access. That said, they finally end up finding Tsunade, and much like in the original, she would badmouth the Hokage position, saying that anybody willing to take up the Hokage mantle is nothing but a fool. And Naruto, listening to this, normally wouldn't care, but considering the fact that Hiruzen just died protecting the village, and Hiruzen actually meant more to him than he would like to admit, would get pissed at hearing this, as he would run his mouth at Tsunade, leading to an altercation between the two, which ultimately Naruto would successfully be able to land a hit on Tsunade, leading her to actually having to return to the village, as after this would take place, we would then have the altercation between the Sannin, with Kabuto facing off against Naruto in this timeline, and Naruto actually making pretty handy work of Kabuto, considering that this is a perfect matchup for him because he doesn't have to rely on getting up close and personal with Kabuto, who, mind you, is a pretty impressive shinobi, even though I love to downplay him in these videos. He's pretty capable. Even Kakashi gave him praises, which I had no idea of until I watched the video recently. But yeah, point is, Naruto would go up against Kabuto and using ice and sand in tandem with his puppet Harlequin, and using his jump scare tactic where he pretty much causes Harlequin to shoot out a bunch of puppets which restrain the opponent, he would easily be able to take Kabuto out just like he would have in the original, but obviously with a different method. That said, Naruto and all his puppets would immediately turn their attentions towards Orochimaru, who was already pretty much outmatched by the fact that he was having to face off against Jiraiya and Tsunade at the same time, with Jiraiya about to actually tap into Sage Mode, but Orochimaru, realizing that this is just not an advantageous situation for him, would decide to retreat, leading Tsunade to return back to the village and heal every single person that would have gotten injured, including Sasuke, with Sasuke waking up and actually challenging Naruto just like he would in the original to a fight on the top of the hospital. That said, Naruto would be quite caught off guard by the fact that Sasuke wants to fight immediately after waking up, but not being scared of him, would immediately accept the fight, telling Sasuke that if he gets hurt and is hospitalized again, that's not his fault. The second that the battle would start, Sasuke would rush in towards the direction of Naruto, but he would quickly be countered by Harlequin, who would tank the blow and push Sasuke back. Naruto would look at Sasuke, reminding him that he's a puppet master and he's not going to be able to land a single blow on him, telling him that if he can even get close, he'll win the fight. But that's when Naruto would summon a scroll and Gaara would come forth to play. Sasuke, seeing this, would grit his teeth as he would tell him that he's taking him as a joke, thinking that he's not able to defeat Gaara like he was, but Naruto would simply smile at Sasuke, telling him to prove him wrong. And so Sasuke would rush in using his superior taijutsu, which was more than a match for Gaara in the original, would actually cause Naruto to be extremely impressed, saying that Gaara, without the abilities of the One Tails, is significantly weaker than the one who actually went up against Sasuke. So Naruto, realizing this, would simply use some of Gaara's jutsu to actually try to catch Sasuke off guard a couple more times, before then introducing Haku into the battle and performing the demonic ice crystal mirror jutsu. Sasuke, seeing this, would get pissed as he's starting to realize that Naruto is essentially just showing him opponents that he used to face a long time ago and seeing if he's even able to stack up against them now. This would lead Sasuke to using his Sharingan and actually avoid each and every single one of Haku's Senbon, but strangely enough, Haku would kick it into another gear, going even faster than what Haku was able to remember, or sorry, Sasuke was able to remember, leading to Sasuke getting extremely enraged and the power of the curse mark to actually start flaring up. And just as this would happen, Kakashi would actually arrive to the top of the hospital, stopping the fight entirely, grabbing Naruto by the wrist and squeezing him, telling him to stop using deadly jutsu like that on a comrade, and turning to Sasuke and essentially telling him to stand down, that the two of their fight is over. Naruto would pull his arm away from Kakashi, telling him that Sasuke started it, and Sasuke would simply be like, whatever, as he would backflip off the roof and this time not have to stare at a destroyed water container that he would have had to in the original. That being said though, Sasuke, still being influenced by the curse mark and his desire to grow more powerful, would still end up going with Orochimaru, as the Sasuke retrieval arc that we get in the original would still play out, and we would see Konoha still send out the same group of Genin beginning that they would have sent out in the original. In this timeline, there would be a little bit of an animosity between Naruto and, I was gonna say Gaara, but no, Neji, and that's gonna be causing a little bit of a rift between the team. But that's not even the biggest thing that's gonna be going into this mission. The other thing is gonna be the fact that Naruto's actually not going to be getting help, or sorry, not Naruto, but Naruto's squad isn't gonna be getting help from the Sand Village. Because you guys remember the fact that in the original story, Tamari, Kankuro, and Gaara actually end up saving a couple of the members. I believe it was Shikamaru, Kiba, and obviously Rock Lee, who would end up facing off against Kimimaro. That's going to be a pretty big deal because this means that we're going to be getting exponential losses. Kiba, he's going to die for sure. Shikamaru, I'm not sure if I want to kill him just because I do like his character, but unfortunately, if we're just keeping things real, he's gonna die. Like, he's gonna die. Shikamaru is unfortunately gonna be getting knocked out in this timeline. And when Naruto faces off against Kimimaro, he wouldn't use the same strategies that he would have used in canon, which is essentially trying to bombard somebody like him with multiple clones, which obviously was ineffective because of Kimimaru's bone Keke Genkai that he's able to use to just destroy the clones. But in this timeline, using puppets, this is actually going to be much more beneficial to Naruto because he's going to be able to land chip damage on Kimimaro, who even if he lands attacks on these characters aren't going to be dying, you know what I mean? And from what I remember, he doesn't exactly have an instant kill jutsu that I could see him using on the puppets, at least without his curse mark stage. So this would mean that Kimimaro, through using his bone kicking Genkai jutsu, would show off a lot of the cards that he has in his arsenal, eventually realizing that he's not going to be able to win this battle against Naruto as easily as he thought. So he would use the powers of his curse mark as blood would begin coming out of his mouth, and Naruto, taking note of this, would say, "You're sick, aren't you?" Kimimaro would look at him and tell him that that's none of his concern, that at the moment he's simply here to fulfill Orochimaru's goals, which is capturing Sasuke and using him as his vessel. Naruto would wonder why Kimimaro on the side of that damn snake, as he would go on to tell him that he knows he's only using him. Kimimaro would go on to explain that it's none of his business, as Naruto would tell him to serve him instead, as we would then see Naruto attempt something that he's never done in the story thus far, which would be connecting a chakra string to Kimimaro's arm with him having not noticed at all. And as Kimimaro was going in to land an attack with his curse mark stage 2 on one of Naruto's puppets to just absolutely wreck it, Naruto would proceed to hold his arm back as a load of sand would actually begin wrapping around Kimimaro before then being frozen solid by Haku himself, which means that not only is he embedded within a bunch of sand, but this sand would harden as it would be frozen by Haku, and Naruto would then close his hand as Gaara would do so as well, crushing Kimimaro and just killing him instantly. Naruto, seeing that Kimimaro's body was left there, would smirk as he would simply think to himself that he'll come for that later. Cause you already know I had to give Naruto Kimimaro as a puppet. Come on now, Kimimaro is a heavily underused character, and with that Curse Mark 2 stage as well as that Bone Kiki Genkai, it's gonna be super sick watching Naruto shoot a bunch of bones at people and use him for taijutsu close combat and stuff. Plus, it's gonna be perfect for the idea that I have for Harlequin towards the end of the story. So, with that being said, Naruto would make his way after Sasuke as he would finally yell out, "Sasuke!" Sasuke would turn around with a grin as he would stare at Naruto with his face covered in curse mark markings and his eyes being a distorted yellow, looking glossy as if he had just been on some very hardcore substances. It's, you know, that's all I can say for now, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, Naruto, turning to Sasuke, would ask him why in the world he's going after that snake, telling him that he's a fool and he's running straight into a trap, that Orochimaru's simply gonna use him and kill him once he's done. But Sasuke, hearing this, would not say a word, as turning towards Naruto, he would grin and rush in at him, trying to attack Naruto. But as this happens, almost like it's a replay of their last battle, Harlequin would come out and tank the blow, this time being pushed back, and the wood that Harlequin's arm would use would actually be like, if you look at it, you could see that some cracks are beginning to form. Sasuke would smirk, looking at Naruto and telling him that there's a clear difference between their powers now, telling him that in that moment, he didn't even use his Sharingan, and look at the damage that he did to Harlequin, his favorite puppet, staying near dead. Naruto, turning to Sasuke, would tell him that he's a fool, before then trying to actually summon the rest of his puppets. But Sasuke would just not let him, not letting up for a second, and actually creating a shadow clone which would try to fight off against Harlequin, all the while he was making sure that Naruto had absolutely zero ways to summon his puppets. Naruto in this moment would actually be forced to fight Sasuke one-on-one, and funny enough, he would actually do an incredible job. Sasuke, knowing how Naruto works and the fact that he needs to summon his puppets to even be, remotely a challenge for him, would smirk, taking advantage of this fact for Naruto, with Naruto getting pushed back and actually getting beaten to a pulp by Sasuke, who at this point would have his Sharingan active and would ask Naruto how it feels to actually have to step into the line of battle, take damage himself, and actually deal with the consequences of losing to an enemy, as he would uppercut Naruto, sending him crashing onto the ground as he would begin coughing out blood and get pissed. Naruto at this point, his eyes would change colors as he would rush back in towards Sasuke with his semi-decent taijutsu. He would go in and actually impress Sasuke, who would say, you're not half bad of a fighter, you're just not as good as I am, throwing a 1-2 punch at Naruto, all the while Naruto's Harlequin would be facing Sasuke's clone. And as Naruto would begin getting pushed back more and more and the damage would begin piling up, Naruto would finally use the jutsu he's been working on forever with, as he would use his puppet substitution jutsu, switching places with his puppet, as Sasuke's Chidori, which he would have tried to land on Naruto's chest, would land on Harlequin, piercing through him, as Sasuke turns back to see that Naruto's now facing off against his clone, who's not as strong as him. Naruto would instantly destroy the clone by using the powers of the Nine Tails and take his scroll out, with Sasuke being like, no. But in this moment, you would simply see Gaara, Haku, Zabuza, Quincy, all the small little puppets and everything that Naruto's gotten to his disposal up to this point appear, as Sasuke, seeing this, would simply advance his Sharingan to the third state Tomoe, with Sasuke beginning to rush through these puppets and actually try his best to keep up with them, but it was just too much. Sasuke was facing off against too many incredibly powerful opponents, not to mention the fact that they were all currently being empowered by Naruto's Kurama chakra mode. That said, Sasuke would be getting pushed to the brink, and he would eventually tap into, I know I said he already had the 3-stage Tomoe, but this would cause him to finally evolve. He had the 2-stage in one eye, the 3-stage in another. Both of them would evolve to the 3-state Tomoe, as he would do his best to fight, but it just wouldn't be enough. Suddenly, Sasuke's curse mark power would begin overcoming him, as it would cover him entirely, and he would tap into the 2nd stage of the curse mark abilities, awakening power never before seen by Sasuke in the series, as Naruto would smirk and all of his puppets would launch full-scale attacks at Sasuke, who would try to use his wings to fly and evade, but sand would wrap around his leg, tethering him to the ground, as Haku's newfound ice jutsu would go rushing towards the direction of Sasuke, which would be an ice dragon that would actually chomp on Sasuke, smashing him to the ground, with him getting up slowly, covered in all this damage, as Naruto and Sasuke would now look like they've both been beaten and battered. Sasuke, turning towards the direction of Naruto, would tell him that he's a coward for fighting with puppets, saying that Naruto has to hide behind these wooden dolls because he's incapable of fighting against himself. But Naruto would simply smirk towards Sasuke, telling him, what does that make him? He can't even handle these puppets, these dolls, which he calls them. Sasuke, hearing this, would grit his teeth as he would tell Naruto he'll kill him. Forming an Onyx Chidori, he would fly in towards the direction of Naruto, as Naruto would once again use his substitution jutsu, and Harlequin would tank the full brunt force of this blow, blowing up everywhere. This would end up releasing a gas that would completely blind Sasuke, as the tear gas would go everywhere, and Sasuke would begin looking around trying to regain his vision. But by then it would be too late. Sasuke's vision would go completely dark, and in an instant he would realize that the battle was over. Hours later, he would find himself waking up in a hospital bed with both of his arms tethered to the bed so that he couldn't escape. And he would even realize that Kakashi himself would be in the corner of the room, as he would finally turn to him saying, "Good, you're awake. Sasuke, what was that about? Why are you going off in search of power from a rogue ninja like Orochimaru? You know he's simply gonna use you. That was foolish even for you. I already told you that the path of revenge leads to nothing good, and you proved that right. 2 shinobi were lost out on the battlefield, trying to get you to come back to Konoha. Shikamaru and Kiba died out there, and Neji's on a hospital stretcher, hoping that he survives. Do you understand what this foolish act actually did to the team? You've broken all bonds of trust, and now I'm gonna be forced to go out there and show my face to get you to get out of these shackles and not be imprisoned as you very well should be. Sasuke hearing this would grit his teeth as he would realize the severity of everything that he had just done, realizing that he might not have liked Shikamaru or Kiba, they still died trying to bring him back to the village. Sasuke would then ask what became of Naruto, with Kakashi saying that Naruto's back in the village and he's working on, well, he would simply just stay quiet as he wouldn't say what he's actually doing because Kakashi doesn't exactly like the fact that Naruto turns human beings into puppets, but at the end of the day, that is his fighting style and he's gonna do what he's gonna do. Naruto at the current moment would be turning Kimimaro into a human puppet himself, as he would be gathering his things, getting ready to go on a 3-year training time skip with Jiraiya. And that being the case, Naruto would get all of his things together as he would visit Sasuke in the hospital, walking inside with an actual fruit basket in his hand, telling Sasuke that he's good, he's finally awake. Sasuke would tell him that he's been awake for days, and Naruto would ask him how he's feeling after that brutal beatdown. Sasuke would get angry at Naruto, but Naruto would tell him that he's just kidding, that he knows he wasn't in the right state of mind, placing his stuff down and looking at Sasuke before asking him if he's gonna try that again while he's gone. Sasuke would go on to explain that as much as he would like to go with Orochimaru, he already knows that that's not gonna be a possibility. Kakashi's gonna be watching him very closely, and Sasuke's not gonna be allowed outside of the village unless it's for mission purposes. So he looks at Naruto and smiles at him, saying, "Thank you for that." Naruto would simply grin, telling him that he'll be seeing him in 3 years, with Sasuke asking what's that all about, and Naruto simply explaining that he's going on a training journey with Jiraiya, one of the Sannin. He would smirk at Sasuke, rubbing it in once again that he's gonna go train with one and he's not. But Sasuke in this moment would simply breathe in, looking down as he would turn to Naruto and tell him that he better get stronger, because the next time they meet, he'll be the one in the hospital bed. Naruto would turn to Sasuke and tell him that he's gonna hold him to that promise, as he would end up leaving with Jiraiya, and Naruto would spend the next couple of years learning everything he can under Master Jiraiya's tutelage. Learning new techniques that he would have in the original, meaning that Naruto's taijutsu skills are gonna be exactly on par as the one that we see in canon returning, minus the big ball Rasengan and all that stuff, considering that this version of Naruto never even ends up learning the Rasengan. That's actually a good thing, because instead of that, Naruto's able to focus on fundamentals of being a ninja and gain a couple earth style as well as, wind style jutsus to his arsenal, but mainly Naruto's going to be focusing on using his puppets and gaining further control over Haku, Gaara, and Kimimari's Kekkei Genkais, finding new applications for their abilities and growing far more powerful as a ninja, with his control over Kurama's chakra being something that he can rely on easily, being able to tap into 2 tails of the power before the power actually starts corrupting him and giving a bit of influence with Kurama over Naruto. So Naruto having access to that would be able to amp up his puppets at a moment notice, and another thing that Naruto would learn would actually be Sage Mode, pestering Jiraiya similarly to what he would have done against Hiruzen to finally get him to take him to Mount Miyaboku and complete his training during the last 6 months of the time that they had together. Naruto would arrive back at the village, and Naruto would arrive wearing a black cloak with really cool blonde golden hair, fitting into that really, stereotypical puppet master aesthetic, looking super mysterious or whatever. Naruto's grown a lot taller and a lot stronger during this time, and his control over his puppets would be incredible. At this point, Naruto now easily has access to over 1,000 puppets, which he would have been able to craft during the 3 years with Jiraiya, and all of them have different skills and abilities. And Harlequin, he would have been improved massively alongside his other human puppets that Naruto would have worked on during the time skip as well. Naruto arriving at the village would instantly be greeted by Sakura, who would have been around that area of the village at the time, and Naruto would then turn to see Sasuke walking closely behind Sakura, as he would nod to Naruto, asking him if he really had gotten much stronger. Naruto would ask him if he wants to find out, and Sasuke would say anytime, any place. At this point, he and Sakura had been dating, considering that over this time skip, Sasuke had mellowed out, his his whole evil desires had gone down a lot significantly, considering that he would have gotten incredible training from Kakashi. He also would have had Rock Lee as a rival due to the fact that he was like the second strongest ninja in the village, pushing him further and further when it comes to his taijutsu prowess. And Rock Lee's actually going to be more of a prominent character in the series, being a lot stronger than the one that we get in the original, thanks to his newfound rivalry with Sasuke as well as Neji. And Sasuke would have still ended up learning all those lightning jutsus that he would have in the original, with Kakashi's help of course. This means that we would then get Naruto being reintroduced to Tsunade at this moment, as we would then get Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke facing off against Kakashi with the bell test, with this, safe to say, being a rather easy task for them to complete, as they would take the bells from Kakashi in about 13 seconds. Stunning Tsunade, who seeing the progress of Naruto's puppetry jutsu would be very impressed with everything that he was able to teach Naruto, but Jiraiya would actually tell her that he can't even take too much credit, considering that he really only polished up his taijutsu skills, showed him a couple jutsus, and taught him Sage Mode. Tsunade hearing that would be like, there's no way, Jiraiya, you really taught him that? And he would say, of course I did. He wouldn't stop pestering me about that. Tsunade would smile, saying that she can't wait to see him use that in action, and Jiraiya would say that she does not want to see that Naruto is truly a scary opponent to go up against, that he's long since surpassed him in every way, shape, and form, saying that he has perfect mastery over that. Tsunade would go on to explain that Sakura has gotten a lot stronger herself, and Sasuke, well, he's also surpassed his master. Kakashi at this point would rub the back of his head, saying that that wasn't exactly fair, as we would then see Tsunade congratulate the team on their progress and telling them that they're going to be having a mission pretty soon. But of course, in this timeline, we're not going to be getting the Sand Kazekage mission, because obviously that doesn't happen. Gaara doesn't have the One Tails. We're actually going to be getting a whole different arc entirely, which I'm going to be naming the One Tails Retrieval arc. This new and improved Sand Kazekage rescue arc would all begin in the village, as a rumble could be heard, and far in the distance you could see a strange creature covered in smoke. This being seen, the Leaf would go on to send a couple of shinobi to go check out the situation, and unfortunately for all those sent, they would all be killed by Sand Shinobi, who would be there to retrieve the One Tails Jinchuriki after the death of Gaara, who originally, as we all know, would go on to become the Hokage, or Kazekage actually, for the Sand Village. This being the case, and the shinobi not reporting back to Konoha, would end up actually sending their own shinobi there, and this would be Team 7 to go and follow after them in case they wouldn't return, which is kind of what Tsunade was expecting. Her best team being sent out there would immediately arrive to see that the Sand Shinobi were actually about to successfully retrieve the beast and seal it inside of Kankuro, who was going to be made the brand new One Tails Jinchuriki. However, before this could happen, Sakura would lunge onto the battlefield, dropping a nuke-like punch as it would shake the entire area and pretty much disrupt the sealing jutsu that they were going to be using on Kankuro. At this point, Team 7 would acknowledge that a bunch of their shinobis had just died at this point, and they would turn towards the direction of the Sand Shinobi, as Sasuke, rushing through them, would proceed to use his Chidori stream to absolutely decimate these ninjas, with Kankuro making his presence known and standing a bit far from Shukaku, who in this moment would have been restrained by the Sand Village, but with Team 7's interference, everything would begin to change. And so Shukaku would get loose, only for Naruto to actually use so many chakra threads that Shukaku couldn't even see to restrain the beast. Naruto at this point, after 3 years of training, would have used enough chakra threads to restrain a literal tailed beast. All the while, Kankuro watching this would be impressed at Naruto's puppeteer abilities, as he would go on to essentially stop the firing between both teams and telling them that they're only here to retrieve the One Tails, and the only reason they killed those shinobi was because they were unwilling to cooperate with them. Kankuro would go on to pretty much explain that Temari, the new Kazekage of the village, would have essentially sent a mission out so that these shinobi would have been there waiting for the moment that Shukaku was restored after being killed by Naruto. Naruto hearing that would kind of smirk, remembering Gaara, as Gaara would actually be one of the puppets that Naruto has at his disposal at this moment, and Shukaku turning to see the puppet-like body of Gaara would smirk, thinking, that damn brat, finally he's dead. As we would then cut back to Kankuro, who would try his best to, negotiate his way out of this battle, understanding that it's kind of a lost cause considering that they're going up against Naruto, who he knows could take out the entire platoon by himself. But knowing how Sasuke was a prodigious ninja would not underestimate him, and after seeing Sakura's abilities to just absolutely nuke the battlefield, Kankuro was not willing to take down this fight and lose all these members of their village just trying to get the one-tails and ultimately failing. So Kankuro, would do his best to talk to Naruto, telling him that it's rightfully theirs, but Naruto would refute this by saying that it would be theirs and they'd gladly give it back, if not for the fact that the Sand Village had directly attacked them, and ever since that day they've made absolutely zero efforts to negotiate some sort of peace treaty once again since that day. Naruto would tell Kankuro that while he has no beef against him directly, orders are orders, and the one-tails is going back to his village, whether he likes it or not. Kankuro, staring at Gaara's forever, young body, would watch as he would sadly, just kind of be like, alright, I understand. He would back down as Naruto would proceed to actually restrain Shukaku and take him all the way back to the village using nothing but his chakra threads to drag Shukaku all the way back, who would be like, hey, let me go, you damn brat. Hey, I'm a tailed beast. I'm the one-tails. But Naruto would not care at all, telling Shukaku to essentially shut up, as he would proceed to use puppets to knock Shukaku out, and once back inside of the village, Tsunade would make the business decision to essentially seal Shukaku within herself, not wanting to pose something like this on anybody else, so she would end up deciding that she's going to be taking on the burden of being the one-tailed Jinchuriki. Knowing how hard it was for Naruto to be the nine-tailed Jinchuriki, she would not want to pass that on to anybody else, and so Tsunade would be made the one-tailed Jinchuriki. But there's one gripe that I get to at this point, and it's not something I'm willing to research, so you guys let me know down below in the comments. Does Tsunade gain access to the one-tailed sand powers now that it's sealed within her, or does she simply gain access to the monstrous chakra that comes with it? Not to say that she doesn't already have insane chakra, but is that it, considering the fact that Naruto doesn't exactly gain access to all of Kurama's powers even though he's sealed inside of him, only when he forces it out. And I just don't see a world in which Tsunade is just going to instantly be granted these really cool sand powers that she's going to start using like it's nothing. Gaara had that because he has magnet release. Tsunade doesn't. So even though she's going to be having access to the one-tails, I'm going to be saying that Shukaku's sand abilities are not going to be something that she has, because the overall relationship with her and Shukaku is not something that's going to be exactly in the best standing. And so after Team 7 would successfully retrieve the one-tails for the village, we would essentially get a 3-day break period, with Naruto thinking about something that Kankuro said a few days later while he's laying on his bed, with him telling him, "Don't say I didn't warn ya." As Naruto hears this voice ring in his head, suddenly you would hear a rumble within the village, as Deidara and Sasori would have actually rushed towards the village, having been hired by the Sand Village to do their dirty work. Considering the fact that Temari was Hokage, I don't see her putting it past her, and unfortunately for her, because Shikamaru's dead, she has absolutely zero ties with the Leaf Village, meaning that this is something that she didn't care doing, even if the Akatsuki were going to betray them and take the one-tails for herself. She just wants to stick it to the Leaf Village in this moment as a revenge for what happened to Gaara all those years ago. 3 years ago, to be honest, but I say it like that to make it more dramatic. That being said though, the Akatsuki would end up using bombs by Deidara and using his art is an explosion jutsu, as this would catch Tsunade off guard, blowing her away as Sasori would come rushing in and using his puppets, which we all know have incredible poisons on them, would go on to weaken Tsunade as she would attempt to tap into her, Shukaku powers, but being a newly formed Jinchuriki, she just doesn't have the control over her tailed beast that most other people would. So this attempt would ultimately fail, and Deidara and Sasori would absolutely overwhelm Tsunade, who would be shocked and caught off guard by the team, who easily ambush her. And seeing as they were able to do this to Gaara, I see no reason why we can't assume that this happens to Tsunade as well. Obviously we know that she's a very capable fighting, but when you're caught off guard, you're caught off guard, and we saw how much damage was inflicted to Tsunade with the attack from Pain using the Shinra Tensei. So I see no reason why an attack catching her off guard can't do this to Tsunade. Anyways, that said, Sasori would proceed to actually restrain her by using one of his puppets to hold her down and inject her with poisons that are essentially going to be making her immobile. So Tsunade would be completely unable to move, and as this would happen, Deidara would create a clay bird as he would begin flying away, rushing towards the direction of the Akatsuki base to begin draining the Jinchuriki out of her. But as this happens, you would suddenly see Naruto with his iconic black cloak that he rocks in this timeline, as he would be rushing towards the direction of Deidara, riding on top of a puppet that he would have created to have the ability to take flight, having added tons and tons of feathers which actually simulate the same effect that a normal bird would have, similar to Sasuke's Hawk summon. And as it would get closer to the direction of Deidara and Sasori, Naruto would actually command tons of puppets to appear in the air as small birds would rush towards their direction, all having poison equipped on them, as they would try to rush at Deidara's direction and stab him, but we would have Sasori actually counter with his own puppets, with 10 puppets coming out of nowhere and tanking these attacks so that the poison would have zero effect on them. Deidara, seeing this happen, would begin throwing bombs at the direction of Naruto, trying to keep him away in order to create some distance so that he's not able to catch up to them. But Naruto just doesn't give up on this chase, and knowing that that's Sasori of the red sand that he's after, would not let up at all, as he would finally get closer and closer, as Naruto would summon forth Haku and Kimimaru, who would throw bone Kekkei Genkai bones at him, as well as Ice Senbon towards the direction of them. At this point, it would practically look like miniguns are being fired at the direction of Deidara, and they would cause the bird to actually explode mid-air, sending Sasori and Deidara crashing onto the ground, with Deidara being extremely pissed, telling Naruto that he's dead, as suddenly an explosion would go off right where Naruto's standing, since Deidara would have set that explosion to go off, but nothing would happen. Naruto would have substituted with a puppet, as the puppet would explode everywhere, and Deidara would watch on, as you would hear Naruto say, "So, you're Sasori of the red sand. I've heard a lot about you," as Harlequin would go rushing towards the direction of Sasori, with Sasori using his Hiroku puppet to block, but suddenly a ton of different jutsus would come at him from all different directions, with Naruto having turned a bunch of people into puppets during his lifetime, with people who were, really good at using water jutsus, fire jutsus, stone jutsus, earth jutsus, and even people with Kekkei Genkai that he would have encountered during his time. A person who would have actually had a really potent lightning Kekkei Genkai, a person who also would have had like a crystal release Kekkei Genkai, he and Jiraiya would have defeated over the time skip. So Naruto would overwhelm Sasori with all the firepower that he's managed to get during this time, actually destroying his Hiroko puppet, with Sasori being stunned that somebody was actually able to command and operate so many puppets, turning to Naruto and asking him if he truly discovered the key of using the puppeteer jutsu that allows him to turn humans into puppets. Naruto would say that it was a bit hard to crack, but knowing that it was possible, he figured it out. And Sasori, looking towards the direction of Naruto, would smile, as turning to Deidara, he would tell him that if he gets involved, he'll kill him. Deidara, hearing this, would be angry, as he would realize that this is about to be a fight between puppets versus puppets, and you would just see Sasori summon a scroll as Naruto watches, allowing him to whip out his strongest puppets, as the Kazekage Rasa would come forth, and 1,000 puppets would also come forth as well. Naruto, seeing this, would smile as he would look extremely giddy, having waited for this battle to happen forever, just dreaming about the day that he would get the opportunity to face off against the greatest puppet user that's ever lived, and showing that that's no longer the case. The second the battle would start, Sasori would get utterly overwhelmed, with Naruto showing the grand difference between the both of them when it comes to puppet control. Sasori was controlling regular puppets and obviously Rasa, but Gaara being there would be a perfect counter to Rasa Sand, and Naruto, using all these jutsus that he has at his disposal that he's collected over the years, would just absolutely destroy Sasori. I mean, he embarrasses him. It even gets to a point where even the puppets that might might have landed even nick attacks or slight, little damage to his puppets, Naruto would simply take control over it in an instant, weaving his hands in such a way that Sasori just didn't expect, and actually taking control of his own puppets and using them against Sasori. Sasori would have an arm completely sent flying onto the ground, as Deidara, realizing that Sasori was gonna lose, would prepare his jutsu that he would have used against Sasuke, which was C0 or something like that, which allows him to fill the air with micro explosions that destroy you from the inside out. Using that, he would set everything up perfectly, and all the while you would pretty much see Naruto like not noticing, because he's just paying attention to destroying Sasori, which he would successfully do, breaking his leg off and leaving him on his very last leg, with Sasori showing respect for Naruto in his final moments, as Naruto would proceed to pierce Sasori's heart, thinking that that's an incredibly smart thing to do, but foolish, as he would kill Sasori, and in an instant you would simply see Sasori's puppet body rise to the air, as small little workshop tinker puppets would end up arriving to Sasori, grabbing his lost limbs and appendages and creating new ones instantly, replacing it similar to what Iron Man does whenever he loses pieces of his armor and stuff. They just instantly get fixed, and Naruto would then turn his attentions towards Deidara, with Deidara standing still and having a sweat drop go down his face, before then smiling and saying, "Art is but before he can even finish his sentence and release the explosion going off, you would suddenly see Sasuke come flying in on top of his hawk with Sakura, as using his Chidori stream would actually end up piercing Naruto, disarming the bombs inside of his system, as redirecting another one towards the direction of Deidara would proceed to pierce him in the chest, killing him instantly, with Deidara's trump card being absolutely nullified by Sasuke's Sharingan and lightning release that he has in the series. This version of Sasuke would be a much more cold and calculated one than the one that we get in the original, because this one would have had an absolute fire lit under him after losing to Naruto, swearing that that would never happen again, not only training to beat Itachi, but training to beat a puppet master ready for anything that Naruto could throw his way. And so we would simply watch as Naruto would thank Sasuke, telling him that he didn't have to hit him that hard, with Sasuke saying it was either that or death, Naruto turning to Sasuke and saying he knows he wouldn't have died, Kurama's chakra healing factor would have healed him. Sasuke would say maybe he did, maybe he didn't, as he would walk towards the body of Deidara, making sure to double tap him, but before he could do that, Naruto would tell him to stop, saying that he's gonna use that corpse. Sasuke would scoff at this, thinking, "Of course you are. After all, you're always relying on someone else's strength." Naruto would look at Sasuke saying, "What was that, Sasuke?" As Sasuke would say, "Nothing you need to be worried about." With Sakura saying, hey, we're a team again, remember? So let's not fight right here." And so Naruto would say, "Yeah, sure, team," as he would proceed to essentially turn Sasori, which is an easy fix, just kind of improving his puppet body, and also taking Rasa to be one of his puppets as well, turning towards the direction of Deidara's body and using his corpse to create a puppet out of Deidara's Kekkei Genkai, which is going to be very useful to him, because now Naruto's going to be gaining access to an ability that's going to be really overpowered. Not only is he going to be getting access to that kill, like suicide bomb that Deidara has, but that technique that he has to fill the air with microscopic bombs is one of the most underrated and overpowered jutsus of the series. The fact that Sasuke was there was the only reason that that thing didn't heavily damage Naruto, if not beat him. But with that being said, we would watch on as Team 7 would remain in the village, and after this, the Naruto timeline kind of gets a bit funky for me, because obviously we know that first comes the Sankaze Kage retrieval mission, followed by the Tenchi Bridge arc, which obviously doesn't happen in this timeline because Sasuke doesn't go with Orochimaru. But after that, I'm pretty sure that chronologically the next arc would be Asuma's death and like a little bit of a time spent on, I don't even know what the number of his team is, but obviously he dies and they face off against Hidan and Kakuzu. This time, because Sasuke's in the village, they were able to absolutely obliterate the Akatsuki when they came to the village, and Naruto would simply just be getting stronger and stronger, with this Naruto never having to learn Sage Mode, obviously because he already learned it. So once they end up getting word of the fact that Hidan and Kakuzu were members of the Akatsuki who had killed Asuma, Naruto would gladly go forth with Team Asuma to go and handle Kakuzu and Hidan, which Naruto would do very easily. body, with Kakuzu using his puppet hearts or whatever it is that he uses in the original to try to deal massive damage to, Kakashi and I was gonna say Asuma, but no, Choji and Ino, who are there trying to avenge Asuma. We would essentially just see Naruto come flying in as multiple puppets would end up arriving on the scene and would just proceed to absolutely jump and decimate Hidan and Kakuzu, who would instantly be destroyed by this version of Naruto, who was just levels and levels above the original one that we get, and he would ultimately end up turning Hidan into a puppet before he even kills him, forcing Hidan and Kakuzu to actually fight to the death. And because Kakuzu is obviously the stronger of the two, Hidan's head would be sent flying off of his body, as we would then be greeted to the biggest sand tsunami that the Narutoverse has ever seen, which would completely drown Kakuzu and leave him with no oxygen, with Naruto crushing his hand and killing Kakuzu in that moment. Blood would splatter everywhere, but Naruto would simply smile at the fact that that was another Akatsuki member down. After this would happen, Naruto would proceed to go over to Hidan, and realizing that he was literally still alive, would not even care, using his chakra strings to actually use Hidan as a puppet against his will and walk him back to the Hidden Leaf Village, where he would be interrogated, giving the Leaf Village more information on the Akatsuki, eventually dying to lack of food via Naruto's orders, as he would then walk in there and simply turn Hidan's corpse into a puppet as well. Naruto was collecting these dudes like infinity stones at this point, and any single ninja that crossed his path was essentially turning into his ally against their will. Naruto was now officially the Narutoverse against everybody else. Like, if you're Naruto's enemy, you can consider yourself his ally within 5 minutes of meeting him. But I digress. After this arc would take place, we would then get a letter be given to Sasuke via a crow, which would tell him where he's currently located at, essentially challenging Sasuke to a final battle, with us knowing that Itachi was only, months or days away from his eventual death. He would have wanted this battle to take place, and so Naruto, Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke would all make their way towards the old Uchiha hideout, arriving there within 24 hours, as they would make their way towards the gate where Kisame would be standing there with Samehara on his shoulders, telling the team that the only person going through that gate is going to be Sasuke. So Sasuke would walk on by as Naruto would stand there saying nothing, as Kakashi would hold an arm out for Naruto, telling him to stop, that this is Sasuke's battle. But Naruto would say, "What made you think I was gonna interfere?" as he would proceed to essentially use his puppet Harlequin to stare down at the direction of Kisame, as it would then pull out multiple katanas with all 6 of its arms and stare, aiming all of them towards the direction of Kisame, who would smirk, telling Naruto that he sure has grown from the brat that he encountered that one day, with Naruto replying, "Wish I could say the same." At this moment, you would simply see Harlequin rushing towards the direction of Kisame, as Naruto would simply rely on the abilities of his puppet Harlequin, channeling some of his Kurama chakra into it, making it far more stronger and reinforcing the blades, as we all know that Asuma's chakra technique, which could basically reinforce his knuckle duster things with the blade on them, he would use that exact same thing on these swords, as this would look like General Grievous pretty much going up against Kisame, who using his similar to when Kisame faced off against Killer Bee, right? We would then see a scene play out where Kisame would actually do very well against Harlequin, with Naruto smirking, saying that he's impressed, as suddenly Harlequin would release a massive gas, which would end up covering the entire area, with Kisame saying that he's gotta be kidding. Poisons won't work on him. But Naruto would say that that's not poison, as all too suddenly, Kisame would smell the air, realizing that that wasn't intended to kill him, just annoy him. It would be that disgusting fart gas that Naruto would have used in the beginning against Kakashi, as Naruto, holding his nose and Sakura doing the same, would just watch as the smell would clear, and you would just see Kisame on the ground, with Samehara having been kicked away from him by Harlequin himself, who at this point in the story scales to Kisame all by its lonesome. That said, Naruto would walk over towards the direction of Kisame and tell him that he's going to be making quite the useful puppet. with Kisame smirking and trying to essentially use that shark jutsu to just destroy his body so nothing would be left behind. But Naruto, realizing that something was coming, would restrain Kisame with a ton of chakra strings, holding him completely hostage, with Naruto taking a blade and shoving it into Kisame's throat, killing him instantly. In this moment, a bunch of small tiny little puppeteer things would cover Kisame's body, as you would then see the classic puppet like little slits that are going down Kisame's mouth, with Naruto happy to have gained a new ally. Naruto would walk into the Uchiha compound, as Sakura would simply think that no matter how many times she sees Naruto do that, she's never gonna stop being sick of that jutsu, with Kakashi actually having gotten used to it after all this time, as they would make their way inside and you would just see the weather begin changing. They would have a slow walk towards the direction of Itachi and Sasuke, as all too suddenly you could see Sasuke's Kirin jutsu land on the ground, as with the thunder strike, it would actually land on Itachi's Susanoo, and so Itachi would actually begin being weighed down, as he would fall down onto the ground dying before Sasuke telling him that he's sorry Sasuke, or that he loves him, or whatever it was that he says, or I'm proud of you, right? As you would just see Sasuke standing there watching Itachi's corpse lay on the ground, and Naruto would arrive to instantly pick up the pieces. He would go on to pick up Itachi's corpse, as Sasuke, turning to Naruto in a rage, would ask him what in the world he thinks he's doing with his corpse, as Naruto says making him into a puppet, of course, he has no use to the village if he's dead, with Sasuke actually aiming his blade at Naruto and telling him that unless he stops that right now, he'll kill him, with Naruto saying, yeah, you and what army? As Sasuke would begin to start coughing blood, being injured from the battle with Itachi, having used everything in his arsenal to even stack up to this version of Itachi, even though he was even stronger than the one that would have faced him originally. In this moment, Sakura, seeing that Sasuke was clearly weak, would yell at Naruto saying, Naruto, stop being insensitive, that's his brother. You can't just go making everybody into a puppet. You at least have to respect Sasuke's wishes this one time. Can't you spare him? With Naruto saying, I can't do that. Itachi was a traitor to the village, and in this way, he's going to be able to serve the village for years to come. Plus, with that handy dandy Sharingan ability of his, he's gonna be great to my arsenal. Naruto would go on to use his chakra strings on him, as Kakashi would place his hand on Naruto's shoulder, telling him that this isn't the time. And as this would happen, you would see a portal open in this moment, as Obito would step forth, ready to collect Sasuke's body and tell him the truth about Itachi Uchiha. But before that, he had to get through Naruto. And so, Naruto, seeing that this was clearly a threat, would use a puppet to rush towards his direction, as using Itachi in this moment, he would cause him to rush at Obito, who would simply phase through, with him laughing and using his deep-pitched voice, telling him that that might be impressive and might work on others, but not him. All too quickly, Obito would go rushing towards the direction of Naruto, as he would go to attack him, but in that moment, Kakashi would react, throwing a kunai at Obito's body, forcing him to phase, as he would go right through Naruto, and Naruto would realize that he just made a fatal error and drastically underestimated his opponent. He would thank Kakashi, as in this moment, Naruto would begin pondering what he should do, whether he should use Itachi or not. But all too suddenly, Naruto would not care about this, knowing that this guy in front of him was clearly a threat. Naruto in this moment would use Itachi, as he would force his Susanoo to come out of him using his chakra threads, before summoning forth every single puppet that he has inside of his arsenal. 3,000 puppets would come forth, as some of them would be small, some of them would be large, some of them would be giant. Naruto would have actually decimated entire forests to create massive wood golem puppets, which are similar to the ones that Hashirama himself would have used back in the day when he would face off against somebody like Madara Uchiha. In this moment, Obito, seeing that Naruto had this much firepower with him, and Sakura and Kakashi were there as well, would decide to actually retreat. But unfortunately for Obito, Kakashi, seeing his jutsu in action, would actually proceed to send Naruto into the Kamui dimension, telling Naruto that he wants to test the theory. And so, Naruto would be teleported inside of the Kamui dimension, with Obito staring at him, shocked that Kakashi was able to put two and two together. And almost instantly, Kakashi would realize that was Obito. Kakashi, feeling saddened about this realization, would turn to Sakura, telling her to heal up Sasuke as best as she can and be prepared to face off against Obito, because they're about to have a fight of their lives. In this moment, Obito would proceed to face off against countless puppets in his Kamui dimension, and Obito would essentially be forced to go back into the real world and either contend with a Kakashi who at this point was not going to be losing to Obito under any circumstances, or 3,000 puppets all covered in KCM with Sage Mode activated, with insane Kekkei Genkai, with giants. Oh, and did I mention he has access to the Sharingan now thanks to Itachi, as well as the Amaterasu and the Susanoo? Yeah. This was not going to be a pretty fight for Obito. After Sakura would be ready, she would actually rush in, going on to help Kakashi in this battle, but Kakashi would actually opt not to use it, and so the battle that we would get between Obito and Kakashi would play out much like it does in the original. However, in this timeline, thanks to Sakura and a little bit of Sasuke, even though he's injured aid, they would go on to defeat Obito this day and land a finishing blow on Obito, piercing his heart, as Kakashi would land a Chidori in him, and Obito would actually land an attack on Kakashi. But as that would happen, you would see a Chidori stream be sent towards the direction of Obito by Sasuke, as Sakura would punch a hole through Obito's stomach. And while yes, Kakashi would be heavily injured, Sakura's presence there would make this an easier pill to swallow for the team, as Obito on the ground, knowing that he's within his final moments, would be asked by Kakashi why, with Obito telling him that he wanted to create a new world, one where the events that took place in their youth never happened, one where everyone would get to be happy. Kakashi would tell him that he wanted to create a world of an illusion, and that world wasn't going to be fake, saying that Rin would have never wanted that. Obito would say, "What would you know? After all, you're the one who killed her." Kakashi, hearing that, would feel bad about the fact that Obito knew that, but all the while he's been feeling those emotions since the battle began, as Kakashi, using his blade, would land the finishing kill blow on Obito before then taking his other Sharingan and embedding it within his own eye, traveling to the Kamui dimension, and then instantly taking Naruto back to the real world, where Naruto would ask how things went, and Kakashi saying that they could have gone better, being clearly injured after that fight, with Naruto being upset at the state that they left Obito's body in. Naruto, however, would not really care about this and instantly turned Obito's body into a puppet, as his little puppeteer like tinker shop workers would proceed to puppify him instantly, as he would then smile, thinking that he'll just replace his Sharingan that Kakashi has in his eyes, with Kakashi telling Naruto that there's no way he could sustain 2 Sharingan, so he would return the Sharingan that Obito has had the entire time, and Naruto would be given access to an Obito puppet, which means that the remaining characters that are going to be going up against Naruto are just cooked. They're just cooked. All right, that's all I can say. They're literally done for, okay? Obviously, we know that, not Pain, but Pain and Konan would be the last 2 members of the Akatsuki essentially left. And with that being the case, this would essentially be a piece of cake, a walk in the park for Naruto to destroy and dismantle the 6 paths of Pain. You're talking about a guy who literally can do the same thing right back to Pain, but times 3,000, and has access to all his previous comrades, as well as Obito, who's capable of using the most busted ability in the verse, Kamui. Yeah, Nagato was not going to be surviving, whether he destroyed the village or not. And so, after this would take place, you would have a bit of a disagreement between Naruto and Sasuke on whether he should use Itachi's body, but after a scuffle would end up pretty much ensuing between Naruto and Sasuke, Naruto would walk out the victor, telling Sasuke that this is for the good of the village, knowing that deep down, he really just wants to rub it in Sasuke's skin and also not give up another Uchiha. And with that being the case, Sasuke would be extremely annoyed with the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke in this timeline never really going back to a friendly state, just kind of disliking each other from a distance and not really doing much about it, since Sasuke knows that if he tries to do something against Naruto, he'll probably die, since Naruto spared him the last time they fought. So That's where What If Naruto Was a Puppet Master is going to be ending. Let me know what you guys thought about this video, and if you guys thought that I absolutely botched it, or if I did justice to this video that's been absolutely destroyed by the AI text-to-speech community. It's garbage. Like, I've seen videos of What If Naruto Was a Puppet Master, and every time it's just, hey guys, I'm here to tell what if Naruto had Naruto Puppet Master stuff. It's just absolutely awful, so I'm glad I was finally able to put my own take on it. And let me know what you guys thought. Honestly, you know, I'm gonna do something that I've never done before. Leave your rating down below from a 1 to 10 of what you thought could have been better, or just honestly leave your honest rating down below. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. This is my boy Konoha's second time commission, with his first one being What If Deku had a blood quirk, or What If Deku had black blood? That's the name. Yeah, so he's absolutely been going crazy commissioning what ifs for me. So go down below, his comment's gonna be the pinned one, and let him know that you're thankful for the fact that this guy provided you guys with this what if that honestly I really would not have done otherwise. So with that being the case, leave a like on the video, seeing as, you know, it'll help the channel do out so much better in the algorithm. And with that said, it has been your boy Xehther, and I am out. Peace.